There I am. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses, where I muse upon what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. And that just really ticked me off. I psyched myself out. I thought my whole internet messed up. Okay, because it was messing up
I
earlier.
mean, if it happens, I'll gladly try and steer the ship like I did for Roman's channel that one time. If anyone had ever seen that, like where they completely yeeted themselves out of the stream, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, that's great. No. I actually know what was happening too. I finally figured it out. But yes, and oh, actually, we're not going to be talking. I had the wrong intro because tonight it's pub crawl. We are on a pub crawl, and this is our fourth pub with making her Miss Martin Muse's debut. It is none other than Untamed Mando.
Hello, everyone. I've finally gotten onto your channel. People are like, hey, I think if you pay her, you can get on her channel. I'm like, really?
What do you mean pay? Oh, whoops! I was supposed to get money out of this.
I mean, it's too late. It's in the mail. It's in the mail.
Okay. Well, whoops. I guess I've been doing this YouTube thing wrong. I didn't know I was supposed to be taking bribes.
I don't know. That's what some people said. But I am very happy to be on your channel. I am honored. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, because our subject tonight, well, we'll get into that in a second, but let me go ahead and say hi. Hello, Corey Cochran. And sort of Poopa Scooper is here. We love our polar bears here at Miss Martin Muses. We love our animals. Oh, that's me. And how are we? I think.
How are you in two places at once?
Exactly. I am bilocating. Yes, we are very good. At least I'm good. See, evening all. Yay, Jacob Ironside, pub number 2. Everyone's saying hello. Oh, there you are saying hello to everybody. Oh, Salty Texas is here. Look at these two actually stunning and actually brave, strong, and independent women. Yeah, I guess
I consider myself very independent. I don't know about strong and stunning, but definitely independent. Don't tell my husband that. Well, actually, he knows that. He already knows that I'm independent.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not very strong. At least I don't have any upper body strength, but I have lots of lower body strength because I'm a musician, so I can't really do a lot of weights on my upper body because that would cause
what instrument do you play?
Several. The ones I play the best, the ones I studied in college, I played the piano and the string bass. That's what I play professionally, and I conduct. But I can play all the string instruments and many winds and percussions, all the Orff instruments. But technically, I could play the band instruments, but I'm not sure anyone would want to hear me do so.
Well, I will tell. One of my better instruments that I play most often is just like a bass guitar, not the actual bass. And I was told by multiple people while I was learning how to play, they're like, if we put this in a monkey's hands, it could play the bass perfectly. So here you go. And I was like, what does that mean for me? I don't understand. Does that mean that I'm simple or the bass is simple? I don't know.
They're liars and they don't know what they're talking about because the bass, even the electric bass, is a difficult instrument. I can say that every now and then I'll be brought in to do a gig on the electric bass and it's tricky. Alrighty, well, let's go ahead. I do have your pub here. Let me go ahead and share it on the screen. And if you've never been on Pub Crawl, this is my new series here. We are boomering all over the place. There we go. Where I interview people where you talk about what you want to talk about. The guests get to choose a topic and we go to a different pub. So we're on this big pub crawl. So far, we've been to 4. This is our 4th pub. I think by the time I'm done with this series, we're all going to have alcohol poisoning.
I mean, I've got rum over here if we really need some rum.
Oh, no. Well, fake drinking. Well, I have coffee, but I never.
I miss coffee.
Why don't you drink coffee?
My doctor says I'm not allowed to have caffeine because my anxiety is very high and my heart might explode. And I was like, but coffee is the elixir of life. And he's like, or she's like, if I ever hear about you drinking coffee until our next appointment, I'm probably going to strangle you myself. And I said, are you allowed to do that?
I don't know. Yeah, that sounds like a threat to me. Yeah. Oh gosh, Corey Cochran's been on the road for 11 and a half hours, 460 miles, 11 and a half hours just unwinding. No thinking. Yeah. Though Miss Martin will give a Miss Martin public service announcement. I never, ever recommend people drinking on streams. It has never ended well when I have seen it happen. You can pretend to drink on a stream, but wait till the stream is over because nothing good happens with a live stream and alcohol.
Have you not seen any of my Thursday Pirates of the Caribbean streams that I do on Twitch where I play pirates and drink rum?
As I said, nothing good happened.
I mean, piracy and drinking kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, you're right. It does. It does. And back then, it was safer to drink alcohol because their water was so bad that you would,
You would die from drinking the water.
Yeah, and we don't believe in letting people die when they're a guest on my stream. I haven't
Gosh,
had
dang
any.
it. I thought I would be the first.
Hey, well, well, you said your heart and stuff or whatever, so you never know. Oh, I agree, Snortopoopas. Drinking doesn't work well for role-playing groups either. Oh gosh. Hey, you want to talk about violence? You don't know the meaning of the word violence till you've ever been in a D&D game.
Bro, I love D&D. I've told this story many times, but my favorite character I've ever created was a half-orc barbarian named Barbie, and she was like a toothpick, but she was stronger than everyone else because of the way that I built her. It was so funny. She looked anorexic, but she was a half-orc barbarian and could probably throw everybody across the pub or anything. God. But she's my favorite because she had a giant hammer that had spikes on the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's actually pretty awesome, frankly.
I was like, I actually said it as a joke. I was like, guys, darn it, Mando, that's why all the rooms. That is true, Jacob. That is true. But I was like saying it as a joke. I was like, bro, y'all, what if I made a half-orc barbarian and named her Barbie? Because barbarian, Barbie, and they're like, do it. I was like, no, I was joking. Please don't make me there. And the DM's like, I will not let you play unless you name her Barbie. And I'm like, fine. Her real name's Barbara. Her nickname is Barbie. I stand my ground.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we believe in that. Well, my character, when I was playing, we were doing a traditional Dungeons and Dragons, was a human female. She was a fighter, a warrior, and because I was told that it's a good thing to start off simple. And not get too complicated and have to do spells and stuff. And it was my very first game, so that's it. But and we are planning eventually to do a Dungeons and Dragons thing, like having tales from our wacky and wild things. We have issues. Things get a little crazy, but with Mara and Steeg. But that'll be a subject for another time. Tonight, our subject is none other than C.S. Lewis. So in this pub, she wants us to meet C.S. Lewis in the Lamb and Flag. Well, first, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Lamb and Flag?
So the Lamb and Flag, to be honest, was not quite my first choice, but it was my second choice. And the reason why I chose it is because I am a big C.S. Lewis fan, which also means I'm a big Inklings fan. And for any of you who don't know what the Inklings are, it was kind of like a writers group / reading group / book club / whatever the heck they wanted to do, club that Tolkien, Lewis, and a few other authors and writers and poets of the time got together, and they would meet in these pubs that would probably smoke till they had lung cancer and just hang out, have drinks, and just talk about what they were writing, what they were reading, just get together and have fun. And so the Lamb and the Flag is one of the other pubs that the Inklings would visit when they were not visiting the Eagle and Child, right? That's the other one. My brain.
Yeah, that and the reason why we couldn't go to the Eagle and Child, because that's where we were at our last crawl, or 2 crawls ago. It was Jacob. I am pointing the finger judgment at Jacob. He had his drink it over there for the second one, and then we went to the EastEnders, and we decided not to go to the other one. And C.S. Lewis goes, "Why don't we go to Lamb and Flag after that?" So yeah,
I thought it was also a fun name. I was like, where did they come up with the names for these things?
I swear they're drunk when they do.
They have to be
got
like
it.
some of the names of like the lamb and the flag. I would like to know what happened to that they would name this lamb and flag. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah. Absolutely nothing, apparently. So, oh, gee. Yeah, no, it's wild. Um, and, who knows? Maybe there's some like long story, some long involved story about why
Gonna
they
like
came
Google
up
all
with
of this now and be like, tell me the stories of all of the pubs and all of the places and what their names stand for and what they are for.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, well, Jacob says Mando and Me, the modern day Inklings. Ah, lovely.
Yes, actually, my Saturday morning show, I thought about naming the Inklings, but then I was worried that Amazon was going to try and copy strike me or take down my channel if I named my
Yeah,
show that.
that sounds about right. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I missed you there, Stephen. Hello, ladies in chat.
Hi,
Hello, and hello,
Steven.
Bone. We
How are
love
you
our animals
doing?
here at Miss Smart Music. We got a kitty cat. Um,
Meow.
my kitty cats are leaving me alone because they've already been fed, so they don't care anymore.
My
Yeah.
cat's taking a nap over there. He's just like, he's got his face towards me. He's like, if you disturb me from my nap, I'm going to hurt you. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, why don't you share with us a little bit about like C.S. Lewis? How'd you first hear about him? All of that. What's your history with C.S. Lewis?
I'm gonna have I've thought about this because like there have been times I'm like, I feel like I found C.S. Lewis and then I lost him and then I rediscovered him many years later. I
Mhm.
think my actual first time hearing about C.S. Lewis was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like everybody else, the lamb is the babe, and our Lord Jesus, the flag is the new.
Well,
I
that's a thought.
guess, Stephen.
Why not? Yeah.
Hmm, that's a thought.
Yeah, we oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Sort of Poop says the name of the pub comes the symbol of Christ as the victorious Lamb of God in the Book of Revelation, Kara banner with the oh my gosh, we have the Book of Revelation right here at Miss Martin Muses. Everything happens here. Let's have an apocalypse. Yeah, that's awesome. Ecce
Oh, well,
agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi. We endorse that here at Miss Martin Muses, and we have a lemon pie. We love our food here at Miss Martin
no, no, no,
Muses.
no, no, no.
Hello, lemon pie. Always great to see you here, or
Wow,
and
that's
anyone
I didn't
can.
know. Huh. That's cool. Thank you. Thank you guys for letting us know or letting me know anyway. And yes, we are now on the apocalypse. You're welcome.
Well, yeah, we all.
Bring
Well, I already knew we're living the apocalypse, aren't we?
I mean, every single day there's a news article that I'm like, okay, humanity is dying. We're just gonna
Yeah, we're
you're
done.
just
We're done. It's like Lord, bring the asteroid. Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe Timon Flip will be here. He's the meteor advocate. He's been trying to get God to send the meteor for quite a while. So we'll
I
see.
mean, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you said when you discovered him, and so when's your first discovery of C.S. Lewis?
I'd have to say, because like when I was really young, mystery novels were kind of my thing. So I was aware of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but I had not read it until um I want to say I think I read it for the first time probably around like 12 or 13 and I didn't know what I was reading, to be quite honest. I used to
Mhm.
be one of those I'm just like, "Oh, that's a cool book. I'm going to take it down and read it." And I was like, "Oh." So at the time I didn't realize what I was reading. And then
Mhm.
I kind of rediscovered him my first year in Bible college. For those of you who don't know, I went to Bible college and then I went to another Bible college and now I'm no longer using any of my Bible knowledge besides sometimes at church.
Oh, get a theology degree?
I have a Christian leadership degree, which
Oh,
means absolutely nothing because my minor was biblical studies,
oh.
but I'm like, well, I mean, Christian leadership, it's a good degree. And then when I go to my bank job, they're like, you have a bachelor's degree. That's nice. They didn't really care what the degree was in. They're like, you're a Christian, so that means that you probably are a good person. We shall hire you. I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, banks are great to work at because you get Sundays off. You don't have to worry about that.
Yes.
Well,
And so yeah, during my first year of college, I kind of rediscovered Lewis through Mere Christianity.
mm,
That was actually one of my first grown-up books by him that I read, and I remember because I lived several hours away from my home, and when I would go visit, I would put Mere Christianity on my car radio at the time, my little CD player, and I would just listen to it there and back and just all over. And That's just kind of where my like love of Lewis came from, because I read Mere Christianity, then I read all of the Chronicles of Narnia, not just The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then I started reading, what was the next one? Problem of Pain. I've read The Great Divorce. What was the Abolition of Man and Screw Tape Letters. And one of my goals now is to have every single bit of literature C.S. Lewis ever wrote, and I'm kind of, I've got some things. I don't have everything. I've also read Surprised by Joy as well. I actually used to have 2 copies, and then my friend Smile a While wanted a copy, and so I gave it to her.
Yeah. Yeah. A different journey I went on it. I saw the cartoon. I remember watching the cartoon when I was a little girl back in the 70s, and that witch scared the daylights out of me.
I've seen the cartoon like since becoming an adult, and it kind of worked. I was like, why did they let children watch this? This is kind of creepy.
I know, and it was awful. But I loved it, and then read the books as as I got a bit older, and then in college I had my Jesus thing, really committed my life to Jesus. And someone said, "Hey, you need to read Mere Christianity," and C.S. Lewis, the guy that did Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So that was my first nonfiction apologetics work of his, and then I read all of his apologetics. I mean, it was great, and listened. They have things of his speeches, the Screw Tape Letters. Screw Tape Letters is required reading right now, I think, because the deceiver is deceiving very deceiver-like, and it's a wild book because it's written from the point of view of the demon, the demon and his overling, and the tactics that they use. So that was a good one. And a grief absorbed. Yes, I absorbed it. The observed that he wrote after his wife's death. Oh, that was very, very poignant. And the problem of pain, I really related to that. Same. It's my other favorite book was Why Bad Things Happen to Good People, but that I digress. But it's the same idea. Why God? Why? That's why Psalm 22 is my favorite. So, let's see. Schooner Poop says my degree was in history, specializing in classical and medieval. Okay, well, C.S. Lewis and the Professor Tolkien would approve. I have so much useless knowledge. Hey, it is not useless. I am pointing the finger of judgment at you. It is not useless. Fix my car? No. Balance the books? No. Discuss the Punic Wars and the Crusades? Oh yeah. Oh, hey, don't get me started.
I'd love to discuss the Punic Wars and the Crusades. That's actually an area of history that I'm not familiar with. Most of my when I study history, I usually study the Greco-Roman period, just like early Greeks to late Roman Empire. Not late, I'd say right after Emperor Nero, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I go up to him usually, and like after that, like it kind of just
Oh. Well, that's history's kind of big. Yeah, I actually have a degree in history as well as symphonic instruments, and the Crusades are wild for one thing because they're so misunderstood. I mean, they weren't a big happy time, but it wasn't the way it's usually portrayed. It was a very complex,
especially the first Crusade, the second, third, and how many? I think there
were several of them. They went on for hundreds of years. So, so when people say the Crusades, it's like, okay, that's pretty simple. That's like saying the wars and talking about the whole history of the United States. But it's a very fascinating time, and the mixing of cultures, etc. And of course, C.S. Lewis would have known that because he was a medieval professor. Am I correct? Or am I missing up with someone else?
Yes, he was a professor of medieval am I mixing Tolkien and Lewis up again? I think he was a professor of medieval literature.
Yes, I think he was. And Tolkien was the language one. Yeah. And they were teaching at the same university.
Yeah. Well, I think at one point in time, Lewis was teaching at Mardlin. I'm sorry for those of you in Europe who hate my southern accent. I can't pronounce things right. Mardlin College or something. It's kind of it's Oxford, but it's not. It's kind of under the umbrella of Oxford. If you go to Mardlin, you can say that you went to Oxford technically.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, we have things like that here.
Merton. Okay. I can't pronounce things. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Where's all our Brits? They're all in bed, I think. they would be
Probably.
sitting here tut-tutting our American accents. Um, and he started off as an atheist or agnostic. I never quite he
So he started out atheist and then kind of in the after the war, he kind of became an agnostic. I think the war kind of like started shifting things to where he started thinking about, well, there might be something out there. I don't know. But I think before the war, he was a solid atheist.
yeah
I think. I'm trying to
yeah
remember because he
yeah
was technically raised by a priest. He and his brother were raised in by a priest. So I think he had a lot of Catholic upbringing, but he was an atheist for a long time and then became agnostic. And then Tolkien and the famous night where they walked around the circle of Tolkien, and I
yeah
always forget the other guy's name, finally
yeah.
converted.
Yeah. Was it a Catholic priest or a Church of Ireland priest? Because he was Church of Ireland.
I want to say
Tolkien
a
was raised by.
Catholic.
Oh, maybe. Okay, everybody Google. I mean, because Tolkien, he had a priest as his guardian after his mother died.
Right.
Yeah, because and that was the other thing too that shaped some of his
Mm-hmm.
attitudes about denomination, which is natural. Being in Belfast, being in Ulster, you're gonna have a bit of a different perspective of
Right.
things. But
I mean,
yeah,
let me
and
pull
yeah,
up his
and well, why
biography
don't you
real fast.
like I said, everyone's going to help us in Google. Now, tell us about that famous walk around the block or not block, whatever it is. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but maybe the listeners don't.
Well, so in Oxford, there's actually now a dedicated statue kind of Lewis at that spot. But it's just a place like a garden in Oxford where you just kind of walk around and get your exercise. And basically, I don't remember exactly how long it lasted, but it was Tolkien, Lewis, and another friend, a mutual friend of theirs, that was kind of talking about Christianity to Lewis, and they gave it to him in a way he could understand through trying to think of what term they used. I just
Was it the
actually
true myth? I know that was a thing with Tolkien.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was basically the true myth, the true mythology, or just they used imagination instead of just hard logic.
Hmm.
Um so they used what Lewis was familiar with, which is fantasy, mythology, and all of those things that the kind of extraordinary things, and they're like, well, Christianity is the best story ever told, and it's got all of the things that a good like fantasy story has. It has romance, it has wars, it has strife, it has good versus evil, it has all these things of a good story. And Lewis was able to like, was that Magdalene at Cambridge? Yes, thank you. I was like, I felt like it was wrong because it was Oxford, but I know now it's part of Cambridge. So, yeah. See, this is why the chat's amazing, because my brain, I don't know if you get streamer brain, but I get streamer brain a lot where the camera turns on. I'm like, all of my brain cells have just evacuated my ears.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the good things about me not going on camera. Maybe one day I will. I'm not ready just because I still like my what do you call it? Anonymity.
Yeah.
Anonymity. I can't speak.
Anonymity? No, no.
Anonymity. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I was thinking anonymity. I was like, no, that's wrong.
That's a technical term. Yeah. And what's am I correct? Because I'm so rusty on C.S. Lewis that his first work was not the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. It was his Christian stuff. If I'm right, or was it the other way around?
His first nonfiction, or his first fiction, was actually the Space Trilogy. That came before The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I think he wrote a lot of poetry beforehand. Let me actually do, because he wrote something.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, that sounds right. That he did that first, but it was like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and his other.
That's his most famous one. But he actually did Space Trilogy before, and you can tell, for those of you who have not read the Space Trilogy, I did enjoy it. My friend Smilewell is probably gonna hang me when I when I say these things. It's not my favorite. A lot of it is it's a hard read. You kind of feel like you have to slog through because Tolkien or not see Lewis is so descriptive. Like there was a point in time where he described a scenery for almost 2 pages. And I was like, okay, it's very pretty. But I want to get on.
Yeah. All right. Okay then. And then he eventually came upon Find the Witch in the Wardrobe. But didn't he also do there was a space trilogy and a romance one? Or was that his nonfiction? Like didn't he do a love one? Or maybe that was nonfiction. I don't remember.
I know there was one that talked about his wife, I think.
Yeah, that was the grief absorbed and surprised. Well, not exactly surprised by joy. A lot he had just met joy, and everyone was like, surprised by joy. And it was supposed to be about Christian joy, but
Right.
quite a coincidence.
I don't. I'm looking at his published works. He did. He very rarely did anything fiction other than The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the Space Trilogy. A lot of it was allegory, which we all know Tolkien loved allegory.
Oh, yeah. Snob. I love Tolkien more than anyone else, but yeah, he wasn't into that.
I think the funniest thing is Tolkien has so much allegory in his works, but I doubt he'd ever willingly confess that yes, these are allegories. It's like, come on, man. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall of him and Lewis talking about allegories. Like, I hate allegory. And Lewis is like, what are you talking about? Your whole story is allegory.
Well, it's like, yeah, Mister, I have the Eucharist and the Blessed Virgin Mary and all this stuff. Though to be fair, sometimes he would slip a little bit in his letters, but I know what he means is that he didn't. Well, and he even says he didn't like the one-to-one thing. Like for example, there's only really one interpretation you can get of Aslan. That dude is that line.
He's Jesus.
He's Jesus, period. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, and buts. There's no ambiguity. And then the whole thing that happened with the altar, and when he comes back to life, the altar cracks in two.
I mean, I can understand why Tolkien would have been like, Lewis, come on, man. That's like, if you're trying to get to the Bible, that's the Bible 1 for 1, basically, except for it's a lion, like a physical lion, and not technically in the Bible he's called a lion, but
that's true. Yeah, but he's not really a lion. Yeah.
It's just that is just imagery. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of Revelation is very much imagery. Yeah, Prelandria was written about the same time that Tolkien was writing Lord of the Rings, Ransom character. Yes, actually, the best part about the Space Trilogy is that the main character, Ransom, is a philologist, which is what Tolkien is. But also, Lewis puts himself in the story. Like he actually he says, and he and Lewis, blah de blah. I'm like, really? Lewis, man, you put yourself in your story.
Insert much?
Well, also in the Space Trilogy, he talks about Numenor as well. So like in Lewis's mind, Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia and Space Trilogy is all connected.
Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, Tolkien's going, no.
Right?
Like, as much as I love Tolkien and C.S. Lewis for that matter, I don't know if they'd have been able to tolerate people like us. They would have been like nerds. I don't know.
Right. They were like, I think you're reading too much into my work. I'm like, no. I know what you're thinking. I've read all of the biographies about you.
Yeah, I've read all your letters, man. I've spied on you.
They would have been really freaked out by that. Been like, get a life.
Yeah, on the nose.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But when you consider the audience for the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I remember, as a little girl, a little Christian girl, it's like, oh yeah, that's neat. It the whole on the nose thing, or like really, it's so obvious. To a kid, that's not necessarily the case. It's something they can understand. And it can be enjoyed, like the Lord of the Rings can be enjoyed without being necessarily a believer. But again, since it's so on the nose with Lewis, you can read the Lord of the Rings and put any Christianity in the back pocket, but it's hard to not see it on
Right. And I think that's the other thing that kind of gets me about some people's apprehension to reading the Chronicles of Narnia in general
Mhm.
is because of how heavily influenced by Christianity it is. There are a lot of non-Christians who are like, "Well, I don't want to be preached at." And it's like, you're not. In
Yeah.
all actuality, anyone, even if you are a non-Christian, I think you would get enjoyment out of the Chronicles of Narnia books. I think
Mhm.
like they go beyond like just Christianity.
Yeah, there's a lot of universal ideas, and well, especially nowadays. I thought we were supposed to be the fuddy duddies, but I was always raised, and in all my studies, it's like you read literature and you enjoy literature of all kinds. I mean, if I only read things that had my own belief system, I would barely read anything. I mean,
Right.
the pagan works and Homer, all of that. The idea that you always have to relate to something, it's like no, no, it's not that.
Yeah, just a couple months ago, I read the Iliad and the Odyssey, and I love a lot of Greek works, and I'm gonna try and reread Plato's Republic. Like, I
Oh,
love a lot of the Greek philosophers. Like, that's one of the things. Like, even before I was a Christian, I was very attracted to Greek theology, philosophy, ways of thinking. Like, it's just always been a subject that I'm just like, that's nice. And if I wasn't able to read those, like a lot of I just don't think I would be very well educated.
no, no. I mean, you have to read the classics and all of them, and the Eastern stuff, all the Buddhism, Confucianism. It's knowledge.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see what you said that about sort of poops. Yeah. Well, it wasn't so much. He says, unfortunately, Lewis and Tolkien had a falling out and didn't talk for years. Aside from religious differences, he felt that Joy was a bad influence on Lewis Grumpy Old Don's. Sort of. I mean,
Hmm.
it was the other guy that he said he didn't like his influence. Some guy whose name started with an H. He was leery a little bit about Joy because she was a divorcee. I think,
Mhm.
but from
Well, that was a whole big scandal with Lewis and his wife and all of
Mhm.
that. Are you aware, like,
Yeah,
just how big a scandal it might have been?
it was especially because both of them had written a lot about no divorce and remarriage, and then they're like, but you know what? And then everyone's like, really? And so some people called them out on do as I say, not as I do. And I think
Mhm.
the Anglicans, uh, they're like the Catholics, you don't divorce and remarry, but well, until the last 20 years, and that's a whole other ball game. That's their that's their problem, not mine. But yeah, it was a deal. It was a big deal. Though I did like C.S. Lewis's defense of it because what he said, and which is consistent with unlawful marriage, was the fact that when she got married, wait, she wasn't twice divorced. My fault. It was her husband that was twice divorced. Her husband was divorced when she married him, her first husband. And so their attitude, their idea, and I think it was a biblically sound one, is that so her first marriage was not a sacramental marriage, and so they were free to marry. But they don't have it that pronounced necessarily in the Anglicans. They were a little more note. We're just not even going to go there.
Mhm.
But, but yeah, so C.S. Tolkien wasn't crazy about that, and I wish I had my letters with me because I don't know who it was, like some philosopher or something that he said they just didn't see eye to eye with, and what did he describe it? He said his very odd marriage. That's how he described his
Mhm.
marriage with Joy, and that was a very British restrained way of
Mhm. And
doing.
like a lot of people kind of don't like realize actually where it spawned like the whole like division between Tolkien and Lewis.
Mhm.
It was in my honest opinion, it was very petty on Tolkien's part. Like I really felt like Tolkien was very petty because if you've read the Magician's Nephew, you see that they use magical rings to transport themselves to a different world, dimension, whatever.
Oh, really? Was that it? It wasn't even that old.
Tolkien
It
was
wasn't
like,
even that deep.
you took that idea from me and you didn't give me credit. This is not okay. And Lewis is like, what are you talking about? They don't even have the same function. They're just rings.
So if they had been YouTubers, they would have been doing EFAPs of each other's YouTube things and saying, "Listen, this is where the lying SOB took my ring idea."
Yup, and Tolkien later on says that he's very sad about how his friendship with Tolkien deteriorated because of something so simple.
Hey, obviously they've never been in a D&D game, okay? Because you can. Okay, that's the name I was thinking of. I don't know why I thought it was someone.
Yes, Charles.
Charles Williams. Charles Williams. Tolkien. Yes, wasn't crazy about it.
But yeah, a grumpy old Don's absolutely. When I was reading like Lewis and Tolkien's biographies, I didn't read them at the same time. I would kind of wish I had, but like reading both their biographies, and I'm like, hold on a second. You mean to tell me two of the smartest men in the 20th century got upset because one of them kind of sort of not really copied the other and didn't give them credit?
Petty little rings. Well, you know what? That's the whole Lord of the Rings was about. It's like it's just a ring, bro. Oh, hello, Riker 77. When I was this more
What's
fun
up,
than
Riker?
Uno and the press gang. You don't. Oh, okay, yeah. Alrighty, yeah. But that I can see that. I mean, I remember hearing about that. But you're right. It sounds kind of petty, but these guys got egos. You know, they tried. I think because they were Christians, they kind of tried to put it in check, but they had egos nonetheless.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
for sure. I still like reading that. I was like, there's no way because like technically the Magician's Nephew is actually, as far as publication order, it comes just before the Last Battle, which is one of the last books in the Chronicles of Narnia. And so I think Lord of the Rings I think it was already published by this time. And so I can kind of see where he's like, well, Lewis, my book came first. You have magical rings. But also my thought process is, wait a minute. So anyone who ever after you comes up with the idea of a magical ring is copying you. Like, what?
Oh, you see, I was actually thinking that. It's like, dude, you don't have a monopoly on magic rings. Look at the ring cycle. And Mr., I borrowed from other mythologies himself. So
And that was my thought process. And so like reading in Tolkien's biography, he's like, yeah, I'm kind of in putting it in 2023 terms. Yeah, I kind of messed up, but I wasn't willing to admit it until now after Lewis is about, almost dead or about to die. I could have probably done better.
Yeah, yeah. But
like,
so but when he did die, I remember reading the letter, and that was where he talks about Charles Williams and his odd marriage or very unusual marriage to Joy. He was devastated, of course, when he died. I mean, it really gutted him.
He started second guessing everything after that.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, Swordpoof says the good news is they patched up things more or less when you read Tolkien's letters from Toad. Oh, I did not see that. I am sorry. I did not steal that idea from Snortopoopus. That was already in my head, and I saw the comments.
I mean, yes, they did technically become friends again, rekindle that friendship, but even both of them admitted it was never as deep as it once was. Just kind of the damage was done, and while they both longed to have that friendship again, they both had been burned by each other, and it's like,
well,
I
still.
still.
They changed so much too, and they'd also moved on. And
yeah, the Inklings wasn't a thing anymore. The Inklings kind of were held together by Tolkien and Lewis. In all actuality, like a lot of people are like, "Well, there were other really amazing, smart people in the Inklings and blah, blah." But it was really Tolkien and Lewis were kind of the two figureheads, and when they kind of split, everyone kind of split as well.
Yeah. It's sort of, but there we go. You stole that from me. Yes. So now we're not going to be friends. He's going to, every time I stream, he's going to be sitting there saying snarky stuff about me.
Dude, there's sometimes I see some YouTubers on Twitter and I'm just like, what?
Yes.
Why are you posting this on Twitter? Go talk to each other. Well, I tried to talk to him. Like, did you?
No. It's performative. When people do stuff argue on Twitter, it's performative. And usually what's happening behind the scenes is not what they're presenting. Not that I have any idea about anything like that ever happening, but be careful. And I always tell people, be really careful when you see people fight on Twitter and then you go to the DMs, it's like, yeah, that person's a jerk. I always hated him, or she's a witch. With something else that rhymes with that. And then you realize they weren't really fighting. And then they're like, oh, so that's what you thought about me the whole time.
Mhm.
Be careful, kids.
See, this is why I just try to be friends with as many people on the internet as I can. There are, of course, a couple of trolls on Twitter that I like to just rile up and get angry because that's what they're on the internet for, and I'm in the mood to be snarky. Snark, snark, snark.
Snark. Yeah, I don't like it. To each their own. Yeah.
I mean, would I want it every single day of the week where I'm battling someone on Twitter? Absolutely not. But there are some days I'm like, I'm kind of in a feisty mood. Let's see what's on Twitter I can argue with somebody about today. And then I usually argue, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. And then I'll leave. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm taking my toys and going.
Yeah. Snark. No, it's all good. Oh, look who's here. It's Wicked Virtue. Hello, Wicked.
Hello. Wicked
Here.
Virtue is like super amazing. She's been so busy. She was on oh my gosh, or Anna, that Star Wars girl stream. She was on Toxic Femininity. She was recently on the Jack. She's been all over the place. Love you bunches. She's a cool person.
Keeping herself busy. Yeah, I met her on Mara's Talk Nerdy to Us. We were the guest hosts or guest co-hosts that night, and yeah, really lovely lady. So yeah, and by the way, everyone, if you see, I'll see all these people, so go ahead and sub to them, give them support, and of course support Untamed Mando. If one of my mods would go ahead and put her YouTube in the chat, please go ahead and do so people can give her a sub.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, but it's good. It's good stuff, and no one can snark now that we're like a Oxford Dons. What can you say,
bro? Like they probably use vocabulary that I'm just like, wait a second, you created the dictionary. I can't compete with you.
Yes, it's like, how dare you? That's not fair. Or they would probably go, how very dare you?
Very daring like, indeed.
Yeah, and they're like, I can't believe you were so vile.
The words you used were so toxic.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that's why I love all those Jane Austen and Downton Abbey, though of course no comparison. Obviously Jane Austen is 10 times more superior than Downton Abbey, but still that whole way of talking, I just love it. Yes, that was a fun stream. Indeed it was. Oh, there you go. Oh, thank you, Mando. Yeah, I modded you. See, yeah, so
thank you so much. I have wrench powers.
Yeah,
not to do all the wrench things.
Yeah, and now you can self-shill. Yay. Yeah, I wanted to, yay.
I mean, I don't like to self-shill, but I was like, you know what, I'm a mod. I have the wrench, why not?
Yeah, and my attitude about that kind of stuff is as long as it's not out of control, like where not you, and I've not seen this on my chat, thank goodness, where people will like just spam. It's like, sub to this, watch my video on this, and it's like, hey, we're here to watch the guest, we're here to watch, so we like to be nice here at Miss Smart Muses. But yeah, and everyone listening and everyone coming in the chat later, if you wouldn't mind, give me a like, share, and a subscribe. I'm at 786 subs, so I'm want to keep getting up there to that magic 1,000. But I always joke, the second I'm going to get there, YouTube's going to go, we're going to make it 10,000. I'm like, you jerks.
Bro, I bet that something like that's going to happen. I would not be surprised. Like you and I, like you get there and it's like, oh wait, I'm here. And then like I finally get up there and I'm just like, wait a second, no, I can't.
Change the rules. Those jerks, those vile human beings. Oh, thank you.
Right.
So, all right. So we talked a little bit about some of his works, a little bit about Screwtape. Is there any particular book you want to go into in a little more detail? Fiction, nonfiction, anything like that?
Trying to think. I actually it wasn't super recent, but kind of recently, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a co-op book that I had that had the Great Divorce and the Abolition of Man. And I think the Great Divorce is the one where you get to go to heaven and hell like on a bus, or and you kind of get to visit.
Oh my.
I can't remember
That
exactly,
sounds
but
right. That sounds right.
but with the Great Divorce, it kind of just shows you like a lot of people, it gives you a different idea of what hell and like heaven could or might be, because a lot of C.S. Lewis's ideas for heaven and hell are like, I don't where'd you get that idea from? I don't know if I quite believe that, but yeah.
It's his way of making sense of it, I think.
hmm so in The Great Divorce, if I'm remembering the right book, you are a person who is in hell, which is it feels more like the Catholic version of purgatory. For me, that's what it felt like. And you're able to go on this bus and go to heaven and visit for a day or so. And while you're in heaven, you like a lot of people actually, when he walks off the bus, are like, "Oh my gosh, I hate heaven. It's too bright. I don't like it. I want to go back." And the moral of the story is, even if a lot of sinners were given the opportunity to go to heaven, they wouldn't want it, because it's not they don't get to be selfish. They don't get to have what they want. They don't get to do what they want. Or technically you can, but the moral of the book is basically, even if certain people were allowed to be in heaven, they wouldn't want to be there anyway.
Mhm. Well, that's theologically sound. I mean, hell is a punishment, but it is also that because the person's soul is so far gone that yeah, you're right. They wouldn't be happy around the beatific vision. Uh, oh, Stephen is accusing us of being cynical. 10,000 viewers have no, I was saying 10,000 subs, and then they'll do 10,000 viewers, and that'll almost
Right.
yeah.
I think if I look at my channel analytics, I beat 100 watch hours the other day. I'm like, yes.
Well, I'll tell you what makes me wanna cry is, "Woohoo, my watch hours," and then they, like, disappear because it's like the last 365 days.
Yep.
Okay,
Yup.
Sort of Poopa says, "A draft of the Fellowship was rejected by Tolkien's editor, who cited the reason being that the plural for dwarf was dwarfs, not dwarves. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, dwarves was not a word that existed." Tolkien responded very accurately, "I wrote yes." The Oxford English correct me. Very nice. That's
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, he really if people think that Lewis and Tolkien didn't have egos,
Nope.
I wrote the dictionary, man. You can't correct me. It's like,
Yeah. It's like, "I am the science."
I am the Senate.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, fun stuff. Yeah, well, that's the Great Divorce. Yeah, I've never read that. And if people didn't know any better, they saw something called The Great Divorce, they would think maybe it was like some romance or
Right.
like The Great
Right.
Divorce.
Because like a lot of people, I feel like the title kind of makes people question, like, what do you mean the Great Divorce? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Um, let me double check that I am actually thinking about the right book.
Oh, yeah.
Summary.
We're
Yep, I
gonna get
am.
hate in the comments.
Yes, it is the Great Divorce. Cool. Yeah. So the title, like, you're like, wait, why is it called The Great Divorce? And it kind of explains it in the books, like the divorce from, oh my gosh, it's been a while now
Like
since I've read the
God,
book, and I'm like, I've
maybe
slept
because
since
it's a
then.
marriage between God, Christ, and His church. Maybe like you divorce from God or something. Maybe I
I
don't know.
think
I
more
don't
or
know.
less, like, yeah, it's humanity divorcing itself from God.
Mhm.
And the fact that people actually, like, a lot of people want to be in hell because that's just the way their soul has been twisted. It's more comfortable, even if they are complaining about it and they don't like it and they hate it. But when they're actually given a taste of heaven, they're like, I really don't like that. I'll go back to this. It kind of reminded me of the Israelites in the desert when they're like, we're out of slavery, but then like 5 minutes later they're like, we're hungry and thirsty and you're gonna kill us all. It's like, wait a second, we just what do you mean? We just got out of here. we just got here.
Yeah, you're just a slave. Yeah, the analogy I was thinking of and being in San Francisco and getting what you want, and then getting to visit Florida where there's not feces all over the ground, and then saying, "But I liked it better in San Francisco." If anyone's
Mm-hmm.
from San Francisco, I do apologize. Sort of apologize.
I
Well,
mean,
not exactly. Yeah, sorry, but not sorry. Well, St. Paul says in one of those books that he wrote in the New Testament that God allowed people to have their desires, and I won't go into detail about what those desires were because I would definitely lose my channel. But that and I always paraphrase is God doesn't need to punish you; He just needs to let you have what you want, and that's punishment enough. And
yeah, and I remember it was a movie, and I can't remember what it's called, but the one of the quotes in the movie is when you're alive, your sins and everything, you're in a cage when you're alive, and you can walk out of the doors any point in time that you want, but the cage is comfy, it's got pillows, it feels good, it feels nice, and then when you die, the door shuts. So if you're on the inside of the cage, that's it. If you're on the outside of the cage, that's good though, but while you're alive, it's a very comfy, cozy, warm, safe cage.
yeah, and I think didn't C.S. Lewis himself say that the door would be locked from the inside, not the outside?
Thinks I feel
Yeah,
like that's correct.
yeah. It's been about 25 years since I've read his works, but
I need
it
to
had
reread his biography and all. I'm like trying to remember all the things. I'm like, wait a minute. Because I'm also doing online classes for C.S. Lewis
oh
because
no. Are you
because
teaching them or taking them?
I'm taking them.
Okay, good.
Because for some reason, I think me and my friends have firmly come to the conclusion I'm a masochist because I keep doing these things. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? This is the only explanation I've got. That's kind of what I felt like. I do, in hindsight, I do really enjoy the space trilogy. I did not enjoy them while I was reading them.
Mhm.
Hindsight, I'm like, I actually enjoyed the story. I didn't. It just kind of felt like I was reading a term paper.
Yeah, kind of like reading portions of the Silmarillion. You really appreciate it, but some of it is really hurts when you're
That's
reading
yeah,
it.
that's kind of my thought process on the space trilogy. And if you're expecting it to be like the Chronicles of Narnia, it's very jarring because it's not. It's very dark. It's very it just kind of shows you evil, raw and naked. It's not for kids.
Mhm.
Um it's ugh.
Yeah, don't buy it for the kiddos. I'm sure we'll talk about it when we're talking about the C.S. Lewis books on your channel and the Chronicles of Narnia. But I wanted to get your thoughts about the controversial Susan question in the final book of
Mhm.
Narnia because I still swear I have issues with that, and I don't know if it's just because I don't understand it or what, and maybe I'll get it when I reread it. I didn't know if you wanted to
Um
address that.
So the arguments I've heard for people about Susan is why was Susan left behind? Why did Susan abandon Narnia? Why did or why did not Aslan let Susan not come back to Narnia or whatnot and stuff? And my thoughts on Susan was she's still young and she still has time to come back to Narnia. I think that's kind of the even though Lewis leaves it very open ending on like right as of the ending of the last battle, Susan is not a friend to Narnia anymore. But she is still considered a royal queen of Narnia. She's still technically in their eyes considered one of them. She's just lost her way right now, kind of like the prodigal son. I think that's kind
Mhm.
of the parallels that Lewis was trying to do. Is Susan's going to be the prodigal son, even though nobody's really taken an opportunity to dive into that. But I mean, I've seen it many times, like people that I went to Bible college with, who I cried with, prayed with, like we were close. And now some of the decisions they're making with their lives, like it's completely opposite of what they once were, who they used to be. And it was just things like with Susan, it was growing up, being what she thought a woman should be for her time, and that became more important. But throughout all of the books that have Susan in it, you can see, even when in I think it was Voyage of the Dawn Treader. No, that was Lucy.
Prince Caspian.
Prince Caspian, her vision is her at a ball during, World War II and stuff, obviously, because that's when kind of all of this takes place. And she's like obsessed with, I'm an adult. I'm with the in crowd. I want to fit in. I want to be liked by everyone. And that happens to a lot of people. Peer pressure and popularity changes a lot of people. They become vain. And I think that eventually Susan, if we were to get an extended period for the rest of the Chronicles of Narnia, like the life of Susan, I think in the end she will most likely come back to Narnia. But
so it wasn't his intention to say that because she didn't go with the rest of them that she was damned, like that was her only chance.
Right. I think it was more of a, because I feel like I remember Aslan saying like something about her not being there for now or something, but there's like, she still has a chance because she's still alive. Like the other thing about the last battle, and spoilers.
Grim. Yeah, spoiler.
They're all dead, grim. Basically. All of like Peter and Lucy and Edmund. Like the reason why they're in the new Narnia is because they all died in a train wreck.
Yeah,
Susan was not on there.
They crashed right into a mountain or something. I forget what it was, but it was brutal.
Yeah. I'm glad they don't remember it or something. Like their memories were
kids. Like, man, I know when I first read that, I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, speaking of, we have a dog. So we have a bear, a cat, and a dog. Hello, Hound 3000. He's saying hello, woof woof, Miss Martin Muses, Untamed Mando, and everyone. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Hound actually makes another I feel like after she loses her siblings, I feel like, and that could just be me being hopeful, that she's like, what have I done? And I imagine like when she passes on, I hope she doesn't try and yeet herself, but when she gets older and she passes on, I feel like she will come back to Narnia. I feel like that I don't see how she couldn't, especially losing all of her Narnia friends. Like, because everyone she once knew in Narnia is now gone. Like, that's in our world. Like, Eustace, and then his friend, who I always forget her name, Edmund, Lucy, Peter, their uncle or uncle, and then his friend, who I just read
I know
The Magician's Nephew.
And now it just went right out of my head too.
I'm about to pull out my copy and be like, what are these names?
Everybody Google. Oh boy. While she's looking that up, Steve Ransom says, like you both said, the screw tape letters are required reading for today. There are parts in that speak very specifically to today's ambiguity. Okay, she's still looking. And the dog and the bear are scritching and nose booping and whatever animals do.
I mean, Diggory and Polly. There they are.
There we go.
Yeah, they're there. Which one of the things I said about this particular story on my stream, on the panel stream, was I was always upset that Diggory and Polly never got together. I was like, I feel like it's a crime. They went through so much together and they never got together. What is this?
Yeah, to grow up. Yeah, they were a match made to heaven.
Yes.
Oh, literally. Gosh darn it, yeah.
They still died together.
Well, there you go. Yeah, at least they got blown up or whatever. I don't know. It's so grim. C.S. Lewis, how dare you? How very dare you? That's just messed up.
I mean, like, there are people who are like, yeah, Chronicles of Narnia is for kids. I'm like, older children. I don't think young children should.
Yeah, the first one's okay, kind of, but that witch is scary. In the book, she's scary. Well, speaking of the whole weirdo creeper stranger offering candy to
that's probably why people say don't take candy from strangers. It's from that.
Well, and not to mention Mr. Tumnus drugging Lucy. It's like, dude.
When you put like some of like Lewis's stories in the proper context, like, yes, a small girl was taken to some dude's house and drugged so that way a woman could take her into slavery.
Yeah, precisely. And I do recall the filmmakers saying deliberately they made him younger because the image of the creepy old man drugging Lucy, the little girl, was too much.
A little messed up, just a smidge.
Yeah. Oh, oh, and just when I think I'm a terrible person, someone comes in and says something like this. Stephen Ransom says, "When we are young and in the Eden of our parents' homes, it's easy to be faithful, but reality can tempt or taint the sense of grace." Yeah. Well, I think we all have that moment that in Vanity Fair. I'm thinking of the Pilgrim's Progress, where um,
You mean the Pilgrim's Regress or the Pilgrim's?
well, yeah, I'm
He
thinking of the real Pilgrim's Progress,
okay, okay. I
but
was like,
yeah,
because he wrote the Pilgrim's Regress too, and I'm like, which book? Which book?
yeah, it's like a well, and there's a good thing in Little Women about that, where they describe the chapter was even called Vanity Fair, where Meg goes to the party and has all the champagne and all the boys liking her, and she's wearing all the ribbons. Same idea. We all have those moments, and now C.S. Lewis he was a lifelong bachelor until he wasn't. He met and married Joy when was he in his 50s or 60s? I mean, he was not a young man.
I feel like I'm trying to. I'm gonna.
See, I always
I
wonder if
think
they were really that old, or was it all the cigarettes? Though I
I
don't know if
think part of it was the cigarettes. I think because
he smoked
Tolkien
cigarettes.
outlived him for like a long
Mhm.
time. Uh,
Everybody Google. Yeah. Well, did he smoke cigarettes? I mean, I know that. Well, Tolkien smoked pipe
he
and
had
stuff, but
pipes.
but everyone smoked cigarettes back then.
Yes, he did smoke cigarettes. Also, did you know? Fun fact for those of you who didn't know,
Mhm.
C.S. Lewis died when JFK was assassinated.
Mhm. And
Nobody
yeah,
talked about it because JFK.
yeah, JFK stole his thunder. But that's actually kind of gruesome. But he did. Okay, he died when he was 64. So he must have been in his 50s when he met and married Joy. Yeah. Hmm. So yeah. Well.
Also, a lot of people don't know that he's actually Irish.
Oh yes. Yeah. They think of him. Yeah, he was a Northern Irish.
Belfast.
Yeah. Yeah. Joy. 1956. So yeah. So he was in his 50s, and and then she died of cancer. I mean, you want to talk about why God, why? You finally meet kind
Mm,
of the woman you love, you know, and then oops, she's dying. I mean, man.
right.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people like that was part of the controversy he was in because a lot of people were thinking he didn't marry her because of love, that he married her for so she could get citizenship or something, take all his money.
Oh.
They thought that she was a gold digger.
Mm. Well, let's be fair. If you're from the outside looking in, I think I could see that. Because the British people are used to these Americans coming over and marrying the rich people, the Brits, and
Right.
ruining
The
things.
Americans are like,
Looking at
yes,
you,
you're rich.
looking at you, Wallace Simpson and Meghan Markle. But then again, Meghan Markle hadn't happened yet. So, yeah.
I wonder if they got inspiration. Like, C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna copy his life.
Yeah. No, I don't think they're that well read. It's talking about being uncharitable. Probably the most uncharitable stream I ever did was with Lady T of the Stars, Lady Toriel, about Harry and Meghan, and we were very, very snarky. It was terrible. But yeah, so
Respect our privacy. But wait, you keep
stop,
putting your life on for everyone to see. But respect our privacy.
stop looking at us.
But also look what we're doing. But don't look at us. But we're doing lots of things that you can look at. But don't.
And then they're out there prancing around and then going, "Why are you looking?"
You have a giant sparkler on you. Of course, I'm going to look.
Yeah, and they're like screaming in the middle of the night. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, wow. Talk about that little detour. But yeah, I can imagine that. Let's see. she and her son uh was the heir, C.S. Lewis's heir.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he only
That
recently
also added to the conspiracy that, like, she only married him so he would take care of her son and all
oh,
that.
that she already knew she had cancer,
I
maybe.
think so.
Yeah, I don't think she did, but I can see how people might think that.
Y'all
Um,
didn't know that Lewis was deep into the drama and the conspiracy.
yeah, there we go. We got a soap opera. But yeah, what was his name? David Gresham? No, what was the kid's name? I forget his name. But he recently passed away. Um, and he played a part in the the movie The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, he was involved with it, and his voice was in the radio that when they were listening
Uh,
to a report. Yep.
Douglas Gresham?
Thank you, Douglas Gresham. Yeah, Joy's son. He was a holder of the state. So a little bit of trivia there during the news report. That is his voice coming out of the radio. Um, well, there we go. So it says that Lewis developed a heart condition. I'm looking at Wikipedia, so it may not be true.
Mhm.
And then that's what killed him.
Yeah, a lot of people think it was stress, like, that caused his heart condition. There were rumors, that the stress of the scandal that he was involved in, and then, with Tolkien and all of that, losing a lot of his friends, and his brother also wasn't in great health, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the Road Warrior finally caught a live stream. Thoroughly enjoying the discussion. Thanks. Well, thank you for being here. Always appreciate it. Yes. Well, and
Hey.
it just occurred to me. I always talk about all our animals. We also have a lamb. There we go. I forgot. He's on our pub today, and the eagle and the child for the last one. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It. Not that I want to feel melancholy about any of this, but life sucks and you die. Is that? I mean,
More
you know,
or less,
yeah.
it yeah, I would also say, like, during his time, like, some other people don't know that he was actually kind of out ostracized when he became a Christian. A lot of the upper echelon of Oxford and Cambridge, like, saw him as a traitor because he switched sides, so to speak. And so I know Tolkien actually had to give in a good word for him to be able to get the job that he ended up getting with the professor of medieval literature, because people didn't want to hire him because they're like, oh, he changed sides.
Yeah.
Which confused Tolkien, because Tolkien's like, I've always been a Christian. Like, well, you've never treated me like that. So that was always one of those things that Tolkien didn't understand. Looking back, I'm like, they were jealous.
Oh, of course they were jealous. Well, and also people can be forgiving of someone who's always been what they are, but the idea when someone turns coat, especially because I know that atheism and agnosticism, even like kind of communism and stuff in the universities, that's not a new thing today.
Mm-mm.
That it's always been there in academia. Like we're too smart for that.
Right. Like, the more things change, the more they stay
The
the
same.
same.
History doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly
Rhymes.
rhymes. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, as we kind of I warned you about the roll 7. I'm kind of getting the dice and all that ready here. Is there any last thoughts or something or anything you want to bring up about C.S. Lewis that we have not already?
Um, I guess, like, my only thought process is Lewis and Tolkien have both similar yet very different writing styles. I still highly recommend reading Lewis if you like Tolkien at all, if you like the Lord of the Rings. I feel like you do it, like, a lot of people do a disservice when they don't also give Lewis a chance, because a lot of them say, well, Chronicles of Narnia is for kids, blah blah blah. He's a Christian author, whereas Tolkien, like, even though yes, he's a Christian, like, a lot of his works aren't as on the nose as Lewis's is, as far as his religious viewpoints and stuff. But I still think too many people overlook Lewis when they look at Tolkien. I feel like I think I said this before the stream, like, I feel like well, it's not you don't have a Tolkien without Lewis, and you don't have a Lewis without Tolkien. They were both really great friends, and they edited each other's manuscripts all the time. They would give ideas, they would help, write the plot or help fix things that were maybe wrong, or they were really, really great friends. And I feel like too many people look over Lewis because, oh, Tolkien's shiny and has this epic mythology, Lord of the Rings is epic and blah blah blah, whereas Tolkien has Narnia. It's like they're both really good in their own rights. They are different for sure, but I feel like too many people are like, I'm just gonna not worry about Lewis and Narnia and the space trilogy because it's not Tolkien.
Yeah. And that's a good point. And not just between Lewis and Tolkien, but other fantasy writers and other fiction writers. I've never had a lot of patience for there's only one.
Mhm.
It's like I'm only reading this or I'm only reading that. It's like, no, I mean, the authors themselves would never say that I only want you to read my works, or that just because I like what I've done, that doesn't mean that someone else has not written something equally good. It's just different.
Right. And most authors have read other authors' stuff, and that's where they got their ideas from. Like getting your thoughts and ideas from only one source is never a good idea. You should always try and diversify your information sources to give you different perspectives and to make you a more well-rounded individual.
Well said. Well, cool. All right. Well, here we go with the roll 20. This is our pub game. Whoops, where's my wrong manner? So this is where I have a d20. We roll 7 times, and the question tells us what which question to ask. I encourage everyone in the chat also to participate if you would like, and we'll see what happens. Let's see what the dice tells us to do. Okay, we have Mando. What's the one thing you can't live without?
In general, or
You can't say Jesus. Okay, I'm gonna make the rule. You can't. Jesus isn't allowed to be the answer.
dang it, he's always
Besides
the answer.
Jesus.
The one thing I cannot live without. I used to would have said coffee, but then my doctor almost
Your doctor
like
proved you could.
yeah. Books, stories.
Bookstore. Yep. We would die without them, wouldn't we? Oxygen. Yes, thank you. Yeah, well, that is true.
That is also true.
All right, number 2. If you could travel back in time, when would you go to and why?
Mm.
No, that's a tricky one.
I would travel back in time to early Greece, travel to I think he probably was mostly in Athens, and I would study under Plato. I would sit at the feet of Plato and be like, "Tell me all of the knowledge you have."
Oh, cool. Yeah. And Plato would be more fun than Socrates, because Socrates would sit around and ask you all these obnoxious questions. All right. Yeah, so she's going to go study with Plato, learn all about that cave.
Yes.
What's your favorite TV show and why?
Favorite TV show.
I know it's hard to choose one.
Spider-Man the animated series, the old one from the 90s.
Ooh.
And I choose that because I remember one of the most important people in my life was my grandmother, and she used to tell me this story of when I was really little, and it was like when I was first learning how to speak. I wouldn't call her grandma, I'd call her Aunt May.
Aw.
Because I was watching so much Spider-Man, and Aunt May would always remind me of my grandma. So every time I've ever seen any like Spider-Man, besides the new Tom Holland one, because screw you.
Mhm.
Anyway, and like it always, most Aunt May figures reminded me of my grandma. So, and I love the story of with great power comes great responsibility. I'm like words, because you have to take into consideration if you are the one in power, what are you going to use it for? What are you going to do? Because there are consequences, both good and bad, for all of your actions. And if you are the powerful one, your consequences are on a bigger scale than they normally would.
Gosh, that's cool. That's deep. Sort of poop is what couldn't. As long as they couldn't see me, I would take a crash course on ancient Greek. I would love to travel back to the 5th century BC and find out what the Spartans were really like.
I wanted to say Spartans, but also like I have bad knees and bad eyesight, and so I know I wouldn't be allowed to be a Spartan. I would have been thrown off the cliff as a child.
Yeah, you would have been exposed on the mountain. Yeah.
So I say Athens because I wouldn't have died immediately.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have been as cool as we think. They were probably smelly and obnoxious. All right. What would you do if you were the only human on Earth?
Repopulating the Earth is not a thing if I'm the only one.
Yeah.
I would probably go to us like just someplace in the mountains and build my own cabin and just live my life either snowboarding, skiing, or doing something on the mountains, or fishing and living out my days in a cabin by a lake near the woods and having an animal, some sort of cat or dog or all of them, and horses and cows. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Okay.
I know it's very simple and basic. I'm like, eh.
No. I mean, hey, there are no wrong answers. All right, our 5th one. What's the worst piece of advice you've ever been given?
Rub some dirt in it.
Oh gosh.
I actually tried to do that one time into a cut on my hands, and I was told by one of my uncles who was a Marine, he's like, go rub some dirt in it. And so I actually went and rubbed some dirt.
Oh.
It was painful and it got infected. I don't recommend it.
Okay, you heard it here first. Always stick with soap and water and antibiotics. All right. If you could remove one invention from the world, what would it be and why?
Humanity. No. Oh gosh. I know Tolkien and Lewis would have been like, all technology. It's like, no, you can't do that because they were against the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
One invention. I would have to say I was gonna say nuclear warheads, but I think nuclear power is still good. So that's kind of like
nothing is completely all bad, is it?
Yeah, it's I could take away one invention. If I could take away the atomic bomb without taking away the good properties of the atomic bomb, that's what I would do.
Okay. No mass killing on Mando's world. Whoops, we already did that one. What fictional character do you wish were real and why?
Fictional character.
I know mine, and it's Faramir, and I won't say why because this is a Christian channel, or at least tonight is a Christian channel.
Gosh, if I could, I would bring probably from the Lord of the Rings. I would bring Gandalf because if Gandalf was here and he could use magic, it means magic was real, and then I would try and be a wizard.
Oh, cool! Nice. Sort of Poopa says any musical instrument invented by PDQ Bach. I know what you're talking about. You crazy. But PDQ Bach is the best. Are you familiar with who PDQ Bach is?
I know Bach, but I don't know PDQ Bach.
Okay. Yeah, PDQ Bach is like the Weird Al of classical orchestra music, and he is hilarious. He's supposedly like what the 21st son of him or something, like the embarrassing one, and he's pretty daggone funny. Yeah, and he comes up with all sorts of stuff.
My composer friend, or not my composer, my what is it called when you stand in front of the conductor? My conductor
Yeah,
friend, she
yeah.
has her master's degree in conducting. And I'm gonna have to ask her.
Yeah,
Tom
I saw him
Cruise.
live. I saw him live once. He's hysterical. Yeah, so if you like classical music, he's pretty daggone funny. And yeah, he has all sorts of weird little insane instruments. Definitely Tom Cruise. What for fictional? Tom Cruise is real. Well, or is he? Is he? Aragorn or Frodo or Sam? Do I have to choose one? Well, yes. Well, if you're ever on, I'll make you choose one. Hound 3000 says a good one here. I wonder how Tolkien would feel after seeing. I know exactly how he would.
He would say that he would regret ever letting anyone publicize his work, that he should have just written it and buried it and let it burn on his death.
Yeah. Well, I think he would probably have a similar response to some of the writers who people have done spurious works on. They'll say, that's not my story. I know that, who was his name? The dude who wrote Lonesome Dove, Larry McMurtry, said that about, they did a mini series called Return to Lonesome Dove, which had nothing to do with his. And people asked him, what do you think? And he said, well, it's not my story. And so did, not that I endorse it, but the Thornbirds, the chick who wrote the Thornbirds, they did that too. And she said, well, that didn't happen. But he would probably be pretty harsh because he
didn't like, his son didn't like the movie, and his son was a very good indication of what Lewis would, or Tolkien would have liked.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that if Christopher Tolkien had seen Rings of Power, he'd been, well, okay, maybe it wasn't so bad. But I understand why he didn't like it. I'm not one of those people who would say that the Jackson trilogy was like amazing. It was faithful to the spirit. There were many things about it that I didn't like, but it was still a great adaptation for what it was doing. And Rings of Power, for me, that makes The Hobbit look like a masterpiece.
Oh, it does. I got through 3 episodes of The Ring of Power, and I about smashed my TV, like my screen, because I was like shaking it. I was like, I can't do this.
I still haven't really watched it. I probably will, because I think I'm at a point where I can watch it without being completely upset. And also, it wouldn't be giving them any reviews that would be significant at this point. But everything I've seen, it's just like, that's not Galadriel. That's just a chick who has the same name.
Yeah, they just share a name, and that's it. That's where the similarities. Well, they share a name and they have blonde hair, and they're women.
Yeah. But
actually, I don't know if I can count her. No, they're just blonde hair.
Woman. She's pretty. They made her look ugly. That's the thing. The actress.
Bro.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. One could argue they don't even have the same name, because isn't she
You're saying that elvish stuff, and I'm just like, I can't do it.
You know how they kept rolling, they rolled those R's so much. And and it's like, what the hell are they saying?
Like, do you know Elvish? Like, you can learn Elvish. That's a language that Tolkien created. You can learn. Why don't you go learn it for your character? My God.
Well, it's not even Elvish. It's English. They can't even speak the English right, because they rolled every R. So like all the characters are rolling R's. Like,
are you
part of
Spanish?
being a boys choir or something. It's like, considering some of the things, Jackson's trilogy was at the very least a coherent story. A bit more than that, I'm being facetious. That's true. Rings of Power, yeah, it couldn't even hit that low bar. Well, I just think it's so hysterical that everybody in the first episode figured out that Haldir, or whatever the heck that guy's name was, Halbrand was Sauron, and everyone knew it. Well, for one thing, it was obvious, but second of all, everyone said he's the only white man, so he has to be Sauron.
Well, I'll be honest. I thought I was hard pressed to think that he was the meteor coming out of the sky, because I was like, there's no way they're gonna have wizards in the Second Age. There's no way. They're not gonna do it. Like, sure, they'll break some lore, but they're not gonna break that lore. And I was proven wrong.
Well, they broke everything. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
The Harfeetsies.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Gadfly. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if I said hi to you, Gadfly. Thank you for being here. Yeah. And to this day, I am mad at Jackson for what he did to my Faramir, though. He really did not do justice at all. I mean, that was not Faramir in the Two Towers. I think he turned into Faramir in the Return of the King,
Mhm.
but I mean, that
I
was
agree. I don't
really
like what they did to
weird.
Faramir either. I was like, "You hate Faramir like his death
He's the
note
one person
too.
that wasn't tempted by the ring, you stupid, stupid man."
Why can't we give Faramir love?" Granted, Boromir is actually one of my favorite characters in the Lord of
Oh
the
yeah.
Rings trilogy. But y'all, let's give Faramir his proper dues. He was a good kid. He was really good. You treat
Yeah.
him like he's some kind of offspring, half-wit barbarian. Like, would you
Yeah.
do that to Faramir?
Yeah, and then they have him like, "I'm gonna kidnap you, Frodo," and everyone in the cinema was like, "What?
That's
What?" I was at the
not
midnight
what he
showing.
would
It's
do.
like, "Well,
He's an
Faramir doesn't do that."
honorable.
Oh, good point, Sort of Poopus. Whoever coached these actors sucked. In the Jackson movies, they sounded lovely. Yeah, because I remember when what's his face? Aragorn said Mordor. He goes Mordor, just with a little
Mordor.
bit of a flip. Gentle roar, except for Gimli. Meat on the bones. Give me the meat and give it to me raw.
Rah.
No, that was terrible in the Rings of Power. They gave us a lot of memes, and
They did.
yeah, yeah. At least they had a Scottish dwarf. No worries, Miss Martin just got in after dealing with some of my students' issues. Oh, I'm so sorry. I know what that life is like. Oh dear me.
Done some
Uh,
substituting in my day.
yeah. Well, and thank good. Well, I'm one of those teachers that quit. I just couldn't. I got beat up one time too many, and it's just like that's it. I'm done. And they're like, "Why are teachers leaving?" It's like because you're kicking the crap out of us.
Well,
That's
also like
why.
I was one of the favorite subs because like on the first whatever class I was subbing, I was like, all right, here's the rule. You don't get me in trouble, I won't get you in trouble. And you touch me, I'm gonna touch you. You throw hands, I'm gonna throw hands. And they're like, oh, but you're not. I'm like, try me.
Yeah,
I'm a sub. If they fire me, I'll go get a different job. I'm not here because
Oh gosh, Sword Poop is or Hound saying, "What do you expect from lessons from an enemy coordinator?" I still think my humble opinion is they were originally going to have some sex, and when the word got about the intimacy coordinator, because there's only one reason you have an intimacy coordinator, and there was such a backlash, like from the whole planet and hemisphere and universe. I mean, everyone was that they just realized, okay, we got to scrap that.
I think they were gonna try and have a sexy scene between Galadriel and Sauron.
Exactly. I think Swordfoot says, I think Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens were more to blame for some of the less good moments. True. They did well. This is a fact. They wrote the scenes like with Arwen and Aragorn, like the in Rivendell and the like, and I guess some of the stuff with Faramir and Arwen, I was so don't even get me started. I was so mad that they cut it. I mean, they put an extended edition, but it's like, come on, jerks. It took 3 minutes or less than 3 minutes. That's all we wanted. And we still haven't seen the wedding. Speaking of which, that was also something that I believe that they missed the mark in the second, and especially the Two Towers. That whole Aragorn saying to Arwen, "Oh, you know what? Never mind." All this stuff, all this 80-year-long engagement we've had, just go back. It was just like, and that was also a thing where we were all like, "What? What?"
Yeah, like I mean, a lot of people's like biggest thing with the trilogy was that Tom Bombadil wasn't there, but I understand why he didn't put him in there because Tom Bombadil is a very difficult character. Like he
Yeah,
doesn't
I would argue he's unfilmable.
agreed. But there are other things I'm just like,
Yeah.
how'd you change that? We
It,
didn't
it,
need that to be changed.
yeah. Well, didn't they say in the behind the scenes stuff that they said, "How do you know they didn't see Tom Bombadil? We just didn't show it." They could have been trotting along and woo, Tom Bombadil in your mind, and I'm okay with that because I think it wouldn't have been done well. Oh
Well,
gosh, I'm having flashbacks now. Then the other stupid thing with Arwen, remember the whole Arwen's dying. And the whole theater goes, again, what? Why? When is she dying? And Aragorn's just
I
kind
was
of like,
confused. I was like,
she's dying?
what?
Huh. And we're all
Like,
like, wow, what's going on?
but she's an elf. But also, like, I get that she chooses Aragorn, but
That doesn't mean she's dying.
like, yes, she will die now because she is no longer choosing her elf side. Like, she's rejecting immortality, but she's got at least another couple hundred years before that's supposed to happen.
Yeah, and they never explained it. She just pops up at the end, woo-de-doo-de-doo. And I'm like,
I'm gonna die. Oh wait,
yeah,
I'm not. Don't you say it.
Yeah, let's French kiss in front of everyone. Hey, never mind. Well, we all saw it. Sort of people. I wonder where the whole subplot with Aragorn. I wonder where that whole part with Aragorn and the second cliff going off the cliff. Oh yes, that was ridiculous. And then they shortchanged Saruman. Oh yeah, that actually was the worst thing that they did. The fact that
I feel like they should have done the Sundering of the Shire.
Yeah, I could have forgiven them that, but just to drop Saruman. And like
He just
my
falls
mother,
off.
she never read the books, and she saw the movies, and she was even going, "Where's Saruman? Where'd he go?" And poor Christopher Lee, he didn't even know, and then they were like, "Okay, we cut you," and he's like, "What?" And then they didn't come to the premiere. He's like, "Well, I'm not in the movie. Why should I be there?"
Yeah, well, and like, bro, like dissing Christopher Lee like that, like you don't do that. He actually knows.
I know. I was really mad. I was really mad about that. And again, a sword poop is, you make a good point. They added all that ridiculous stuff. Or, they could have cut one stupid stunt that Legolas did when he skateboarded down the Oliphant, Yeah. Oh, or I'm pulling a Padme, the Road Warrior, at the end of the Fringe that says, "I've lost the will to live."
Oh my god. Like, I get that when someone very close to you passes away, you can get really depressed and but you died of a broken heart? Really?
And it's like, hey, here's 2 babies that you could live for. It's like, you dummy. Oh,
like a mother would not just, like a good mother, which I feel like Padme would have been, would not just die when 2 children. Like, what?
Yeah, I've lost the will. Yeah, and how do you will yourself to live that fast? I mean, dang it, it is true that especially older people, like when they've been married for like 70 years and then they lose a spouse, they usually pass with,
well, also
but
they
not
only
that fast.
well, also they usually only have like a couple of years to live anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I only have this short amount of time to live. What am I doing? The person that I love the most is gone. So yeah, of course they're gonna croak. Like,
Yeah, like the Queen. I remember a friend of mine told me that when Philip died, Prince Philip, it's like, she's gonna die soon. She's gonna die soon, and she did, because it happens. And she was also 96. Gadfly says the loss of Mr. Willow and the Barrow Wights in those movies were also great disappointments, as was the lack of time with the elves, leaving and all that first half of the book. Oh yeah, I would have loved to have seen that whole interchange with Sam and the elves and all that. That was pretty intense.
I do understand why certain things have to be shortened for movies, and also a lot of the inner dialogue, a lot of the cast characters have, like, you can't really do inner dialogue well unless you do a voiceover, and a lot of times voiceovers get mixed reviews by audiences. Like, if you're gonna do a voiceover for somebody's inner thought, then you have to do it for the whole movie, and that can take away from the main story plot. And so I get that why it's hard to translate a book to a movie, but there are right ways to do it. There are certain scenes that are kind of key points to like a book that you should have in the movie. And like, I feel like what they choose to leave in, what they choose to take out is just like,
yeah, it's like, really? Yeah. Well, I had a thought that if we were living at a different time, after the 20 odd years since the movies, the way streaming is, a really proper 12, 15-hour mini series, limited series on the Lord of the Rings that just had everything in it would just be amazing. But we know they
Mhm.
wouldn't do it. They'd change it if they wanted it. They'd wokeify it. They'd change the plots. They really would have Frodo and Sam getting together and all sorts of weird stuff. And they'd have Awen, probably an Awen and Aragorn banging in the middle of the fields. I mean, just all sorts of awful stuff.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like if say we weren't living in the woke era,
Yeah.
one of the things that I think that could really be done would be a TV series. Like, I think
Mhm.
that the books lend themselves to TV series is more than they do just a movie that you can only sit down for a few hours. Because with a for modern audience, oh,
Yeah,
I hate
exactly.
that.
Update for a modern audience.
I hate that so much, but I feel like it would have been a great for a TV series, because there are some TV series that are also really good about doing like inner thought dialogue, like with that overlay, like for certain things you can pull out, like you can be more descriptive in certain plot points, you can have more dialogue, you can and instead of having a scene where them being in Rivendell is like, what, I feel like they're in Rivendell for like 10 minutes of the movie. Like, you can span that out because they were there for a lot longer period
Mhm.
of time, and like the dialogue between Aragorn and Boromir would have been a lot better because it was more fleshed out. You would have seen their interactions beforehand and gotten more context.
Yeah. All sorts of good stuff. A show that actually does it properly and well and hasn't had to change anything just because it's modern in itself is the Outlander show. They actually do a very good job with that. Now, one could argue about the quality and all of that, and it's just a big soap opera, but they actually have very properly adapted that, and including with the voiceover. It's also trash, but it is a good adaptation. But they wouldn't.
Voiceovers are hard.
Yeah, they're hard, but they do well with it. But it wouldn't. They don't need to modernize it for a modern audience because it's already for a quote unquote modern
Anytime I
audience.
hear anybody's like, "Yeah, we need to update that for the modern audiences," I'm like, "No, don't touch it. Leave it alone."
Yeah. Oh, good point. Road Warrior, they replaced Legolas' part with Arwen, yeah, and she'd have to constantly keep the party on track. Yeah, she would always be showing them up. Uh, Gadfly says, I went to a conference earlier in May wherein some academics were suggesting that because Tolkien made a bunch of drafts of the Silmarillion that any interpretation of it is correct. Yeah, I've heard a lot of
Actually, Ark and I
unintelligent.
have actually had arguments about that, because before all of this craziness, like, he would have been on our side of, whatever's public or publicized is canon. But now, like, with the unfinished tales, and then there's the history of Numenor and like some other works, it's like, I can get where the argument is coming from, but I still disagree. I think
Yeah, though the Silmarillion is on a different level than these things that are coming out now, which are basically notes.
mhm,
'Cause and a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about, or people that just go on Wikipedia and read
mhm,
about it for 3 things and pretend they're an expert on the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion is Tolkien's. It
mhm.
is what his vision was. I mean, yes, part of it had to be kind of pieced together and made for publication by his son, but that was Tolkien's work. I agree with you, though, about some of this other stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Like, when you have the unfinished tales, then you have the history of Middle Earth, book 1 and book 2. Um,
Yeah. Exactly, like I said, yeah, that stuff, but to me, the Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings, and the Silmarillion,
same.
and most scholars all agree. I mean, I hate to always have to look back to people like Tom Shippey, but for crying out loud, the man's brilliant, alright? And he's a lot smarter than I am. Um, in my fantasy, and maybe I'll start doing it. Maybe I'll go through and make a video series, not a live thing, going through uh, the fine points of Tom Shippey's Author of the Century for people that do try to say that Tolkien actually was not a very good writer. And it's like, really? You snobs. Let's see. The one thing people tend to forget is that Christopher worked together with his father for decades. There will never be anyone who has made a greater insight than he had. Oh yeah. Well, and here's the thing. It's yeah, and it's not like he wrote the Silmarillion. He just kind of bridged a few things and did a few things here and there. And yeah, it's just there's ignorant people out there that just like to be mean,
Mhm.
and I don't have a lot of patience for that. And maybe it's just me, but I notice that people don't like to invite me on streams where they say stupid things like that, or scholars. They never bring a scholar on now, do they? Or they never, these rings of power people, or they never bring on people that really know the work to defend it. They they
Mhm.
they choose people that won't know, that'll just go, "Oh my gosh, yeah." Yeah.
Yeah, I like sometimes that I've brought on people with varying opinions. Like Arkasul and I, like we did a series of canon versus fan fiction where we kind of talked about like what makes something canon. Because if somebody like Tolkien has passed away and his son has kind of taken on the mantle of putting all these things together, is that actually canon because it's his son, but also it's not actually him? So like we had a discussion on like what makes something canon, or what can somebody consider canon, or if they have the rights, anything they make, is it canon? Because technically Rings of Power or Amazon has rights to certain things of Tolkien's universe. Like, is that canon? I
Yeah.
don't consider it canon, but they have the
Yeah.
rights. So we, yeah, I did a whole series on canon versus fan fiction
Okay, yeah,
and what
everyone.
kind of goes into that.
Yeah, well, everyone watch that. Yeah, please do. And I just want to say something also too. This whole idea of canon, it is a very recent phenomenon, and it really stems from some of the stuff with George Lucas in the EU and Disney decanonizing it. This whole, and then people have retroactively tried to put it on to other writers and stuff. Like if you were to talk with Tolkien about, it's like, well, is this canon? He would look at you and go, "It's my work. What are you talking about?" It's like, but is it canon? And he just it's just not in their vocabulary.
Mhm.
Of course, the only thing canon he would refer to is like the canon of the Bible. It's like, yeah, well, okay, that's
Mhm.
canon, but it's also something. The very simple answer for me is if it comes from the original writer, yeah, it is. I mean, it's like Jane Austen. Does anyone ever sit around and go, "Is Persuasion canon?" Because it was
I
published after she died, but it was written by her. It's like, yes, it's canon. It's like if someone wrote it,
Mhm.
it is. And uh, maybe a slight gray area, but it's not gray. So fight me, everybody.
I guess like the
What Brandon
argument that
Sanderson
was
did with the Wheel of Time. That's a very
right.
good example because it was his wish, Jordan's wish, that the books be finished and that they choose an author. He left his wife verbal and written directions. This is the story. Just find someone that can write it. So, is the Brandon Sanderson last three novels can part of the Wheel of Time, finishing the Wheel of Time? Yes, absolutely, positively in the story because it's what the writer created. He just
Mhm.
died before he could execute it.
Right. I guess some of the counter arguments that I've heard is there was a one of these were early drafts of Tolkien's of the Lord of the Rings where actually Sauron was a giant cat. Like I've
Oh,
read and
oh
so
well,
it's like,
yeah,
well,
well, yeah. The later stuff, yes, absolutely. The notes. I'm talking about the Silmarillion. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right, because that's where a lot of people are getting these arguments. Well, these first drafts of his that created the Middle Earth, aren't those canon? I was like, no, they're not, because he chose not to make them. What are we talking about? So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how many people I write nonfiction, that's my thing, but my notes aren't part I'm an essayist. My notes aren't part of the essay or my first draft is not it. The final draft and the one that ends up in the book, in the anthology, that is the essay. It's,
hmm
my notes aren't anything, it's just how you put it together, and it works the same with fiction. Though, though these later ones, the ones we have now that keep coming out, I love reading them because I mean the dude's dead, so I will read everything. I will read what he scribbled on toilet paper, if it's available. I
there
want to hear
actually
any
is
thoughts by this man.
there actually is something where he was grading a term paper and he wrote something and that was part of the canon. He's like, wait a second.
Yeah. Oh, anything Brandon say automatically canon, that's just a fact. Well, yeah, well, for his own stuff, but yeah, but that it is the Wheel of Time stories. Is that why Sauron's eye looked like a cat's eye? Oh dear. But that was actually though artistic. That wasn't the way. Yeah, Aragorn was a hobbit named Trotter. Yeah, Aragorn. Yeah.
hmm
Uh, I will have to disagree with Sanderson's work being official canon. His work has some massive issues with characters, Archer's writing in time. Oh well, I I I, I can't speak to that.
I'm
And he
sorry,
just
I
beat
didn't
it.
mean to open this can of worms.
No, well, no. Hey, it's rule 7. You see, once it's over, rule 7 is like the free for all at the end of my stuff. It's okay. I will be completely frank with you, Gadfly. I've told you as much as I know, and that's all I can
Eventually,
say.
I haven't read The Wheel of Time yet, so
Yeah,
I can't comment yet, but I do plan on reading The Wheel of Time. Yes, Salty, I will read The Wheel of Time eventually.
yeah,
Someone's
yeah,
going to
and that's
ask
what I'm
me, "Have
saying is
you
I
read it
have not
yet?"
read it. Yeah, so I can't speak to that. I'm not going to be an idiot person that would pretend that I'm an expert on it, just from everything that I have understood about the author's wishes and the wife who did edit it, that's what it would be. But if there is other information, I will be perfectly okay with being contradicted because I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about beyond what is there. Frodo, aren't you a bit short for a ranger?
I mean, that could have been some dialogue that Tolkien wrote, and he was like, "Actually, no."
Yeah, that
Because like
sucks.
authors are allowed to change like their minds, like
Mhm.
maybe I thought about doing that, and then you change your mind. The previous thing isn't technically canon then in our modern definition of canon.
Yeah.
um
Well, I think a good example is George Lucas with the way some of the prequel material fit in with uh, the original trilogy on Star Wars. You could tell that he tweaked some things, that he obviously got some idea about the Jedi, for example, about them not being married, and some of the things like when Leia knew she was adopted and remembered her mother and she was sad, that really implied that she wasn't a baby when she died, that it doesn't quite mesh. But because it's George Lucas doing it and it's his daggone story, and if he wants to come up with some bull reason why it actually makes sense, it's his story.
yep, like the fact that people forget that like Luke and Leia kissed because at the time of that movie they
Mhm.
were not brother and sister.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it wasn't a thing, and things evolve. Things evolve.
People are allowed to change their minds on things.
Yeah. Yeah, you're allowed to. Well, and again, that's why I sometimes have a problem with the canon arguments, because at the end of the day, really canon is just talking about the word of God, okay? And it's and that is indisputable. What the books of the books that make up the Bible, okay? That is the canon.
Mm-hmm.
And and in the context of the way George Lucas and all them used canon for the books after the trilogy movie, the EU, that's something too. And other than that, I think my personal opinion is it can be murky waters. It can be us imposing on people ideas they wouldn't themselves have.
Yeah,
Um,
that's we
yes,
think
sir.
that I think eventually I will do the series again, like fan fiction versus canon, because honestly, like while we never really kind of settled on a conclusive spot, it was still a fun thing to talk about. Like, we threw out different, franchises and different ideas. Like, oh, well, like what happens with the EU books? Because Lucas says that he didn't agree with some of the books that were written. And it's just like, it's fun to talk about though.
Yeah. But right now I'm defending Lucas. It's like, nothing was published that he didn't approve. And I
That's
have
right.
no
That was my that was my argument of, well,
yay.
he's alive, so whatever he says is canon, is canon.
Yeah, and the fact is that everything did go through him, and in the EU, and anyone that says otherwise, do I completely see George Lucas sitting there eating potato chips, watching his football game, and they're like, "Hey, we got this thing with Mara. We want Mara to marry Luke. You okay with that?" He's like, "Yeah, whatever." And you know what I mean? That he did approve them, but his heart was really in the original the prequels and the original trilogy, but also he did choose to incorporate some of the EU material into the prequels. So there we go.
Yup. Yeah, I like talking about stuff like this. I'm like, what if? What, it just makes you think,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, really good point. Yeah, that is true. It wasn't a French kiss. That's true. That's a rumor. You can watch. It was not. Aragorn and Arwen at the coronation. Yes, it was. Let's see. Yeah. Hell, well, but if you ever feel like you want to bring in some fresh blood, well, we'll bring it up again. We'll get out the gloves and beat the crap out of what's his name? Azura. Wait, is that his name?
No, Arcasul.
Arcasul. I knew that. I'm terrible with names, man. Maxima culpa.
It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, Arc sometimes likes to be contrary just to be contrary, and I'm just like, dang.
No.
But it's good sometimes to have that opposing opinion that you have to defend your opinion and think about it.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually a method of inquiry and learning and scholarship is the whole devil's advocate. Devil's advocate is a very good thing to do because it forces you to defend all the holes in your position. When I would give speeches, I retired from that, but I'd have someone just say, find every hole. Especially if it was a defensive and apologetics. I've done apologetics work rather. It's like, find the hole because I want to know the hole because I don't want to be the idiot up there who doesn't have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. And sometimes I don't know is an actual answer.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with saying I don't know. Well, here's a good example. I'm going to pat myself on the back and be proud, and then I'm going to have to humble myself. But what was said, was it Gadfly about the Robert Jordan? I had to admit I haven't was it the Roadrunner? If I missed it, I think it was Gadfly fiction. Yes, I want to attribute it. I have not read, and I am not well versed in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time and all of that. So I just don't know. I don't know. I just know what it is.
You know what you know.
I know what I know, and I'm not going to pretend I know. You mean debate, dialectic learning? How quaint. I think that's a compliment. Whatever.
Could be an underhanded compliment.
Hey, I've been in academia. I've been published. I've been in that evil world. I've been a professional classical musician. I've been a teacher. Nothing like that can hurt my feelings. Trust me.
Yeah, I did a little bit of apologetics in college as well. I've read a few works. This is going to be completely random, but talking about apologetics, what are your thoughts on Ravi Zacharias?
What?
Ravi, he was a famous apologist that passed away, and then there was some stuff that was found out about him, and a lot of people think that all of the things he ever did for Christian apologetics is now in the toilet because of some stuff that came out about him after he passed away.
Oh, okay. I'm going to sound really awful. He was a Protestant apologist, wasn't he?
He was.
So I don't know who he is. Except for C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis is the only Protestant apologist I've read. And it's no offense to anybody, but it's just, you know what you know. I can speak, though, to people in my own church that things like that that's happened. Does it change the fact that what he said was true? I always say,
in my opinion, it doesn't.
It doesn't, because truth is truth. The messenger is always a leaky vessel. And I think that was the lesson the Lord was giving us by having one of his 12 betray him. And, we can assume that Judas did a lot of good works because he was one of the 12 apostles before that. And before his fall. Does that negate all the good that he did up to that point? No, it does not. So that's my thinking about that. Not knowing the situation, but I can say there is a God and none of us are he.
That is true. I agree. Yeah. That's kind of my thoughts is even if somebody who is bad says something that's true, does that negate it being true? No,
it's still true. I mean, let's use a hyperbolic example. If Adolf Hitler said grass is green, grass is still green.
Yeah. Yeah.
Though he would go and yell about it, but yeah, it's still true to bring it
Yep.
to something very simple. Um, yeah, now it can be disappointing when that happens, and I think that I c- I have in the past been convicted. It's about it serves me right for hero worship. Who is my god? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I was kind of putting someone in that place. It's like,
Yup. And a
mhm,
lot of people say never meet your heroes, and I'm like, well, don't make them the god in your life. Like, a person is a person is a person. They're gonna mess up. They're not gonna be perfect. Don't put them on this godlike pedestal, because you will be disappointed.
yeah,
There are times when, yes, like, you can look up to someone, be inspired by them, but is that person gonna be perfect? No.
no. Well, I mean, I've been thinking about myself. Some I okay, the one vice I have left, I've gotten rid of a lot of vices in my life, is yes, I will drop the F bombs. And when it happens, sometimes people are like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you were this great Catholic and all that." I was like, I know it happens. I'm a human. You know what I mean? And
I can
what was
have
it?
some very colorful language as well whenever I'm upset. Like, there have been
Yeah,
times on my stream they're like, Mando, and I'm like,
yeah. We're human, and don't put any of us on a pedestal. I remember my uncle is a preacher, a Protestant preacher. I won't say the denomination. I don't think it'll dox him. There's a whole bunch of people in that denomination, but once he was said something to my dad, a bad word, and it wasn't even a really bad word. It was like hell or damn or something, and my sister goes, "But you're a preacher," and he says, "Today I'm a brother." It's like, yeah,
yup.
yeah.
It's funny. Like, so many people being a bit sneaky.
Yeah, that's a good
Huh.
point. Yeah, academia sucks. Well, yeah, the whole point of universities, like way back when all the monks were hanging out and all in the University of Paris and having those debates, the idea was you had to have free debate because the universities were the idea, the what do you call it? The arena of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and that if you didn't have the freedom to debate everything was up for grabs. People really diss the Middle Ages, and it ticks me off because, like, it was not what people portray it as. It actually was very open-minded, just some things they weren't because they lived when they lived. But
Right.
but you will find more tolerance and more free speech in a 12th century monastery in, I don't know, Italy or France or Ireland or England than you will find today in this so-called
Right.
progressive era. Oh, I
Yeah,
feel like I'm yelling at people.
and also nowadays with the internet, like, as much, like, I still one of these days possibly want to go back and get my master's degree or doctorate in something. But, like, you can just get it online for free, or get a library card. I have a library card. I check books out all the time. Like, one of the books I'm slogging through, which I put it down and then I pick it back up and then I put it down, is War and Peace, because I've never read it, and I'm gonna read it one of these days, but it's
Oh,
so
I love War and
boring.
Peace. War and
I'm
Peace is
so
badass.
bored with it right now. I'm just like, oh my god, I don't care.
Yeah, there are some points where you're like, "Can we speed this up a bit? Just
Hmm.
a little bit?"
But I'm
Um,
determined. I'm gonna get through War and Peace, and I just keep rechecking it out from from my library.
yeah. Well, you're right, snorted poopus. Just don't drop the F-bomb in front of Father and Mother, or definitely don't take the Lord. I mean, well, and that is where I do draw the line, taking the Lord's name in vain. That is a no-no. Um, you know, the F-bomb is a nonsense word because obviously I'm not even talking about you know what. Okay, yeah,
Hmm.
but you don't do it in front of Father, yeah, because what Father Miller will do, he'll play the church lady going shame, 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 shame. So he'll embarrass you if you do it.
Hmm. That's if you can be embarrassed.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm smart enough not to do it, but sometimes on his Friday afternoon stream, he's got a bunch of Scottish people on there, and they'll drop a few f
Uh,
bombs. Obi-Wan winning over the Cylons must be a great achievement. Hail to Obi-Wan. Okay. My medieval sort of poopus. My medieval history professor loved it when a student took an opposing viewpoint in an essay, as long as they could assemble a logic. You see, yeah, a logical argument and defend their opinion. Precisely. Logic. Imagine that.
What is
Um,
that?
yeah, and I think I put out on Twitter that I think I finally discovered. You know how everyone is now a a survivor of narcissist abuse. I actually think I am, and I won't talk about it because I'm not going to talk in public about things that happened in private. But it's like we have an army, a generation of narcissists, including my own generation, that the internet has created, social media
Yeah.
has created, and they're mean. They'll be mean and they'll hurt and they'll punch. I got really punched in the gut and publicly humiliated. And I'm just like, when did I ever do that to you? You know, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because well, never mind. I won't talk about it, but it hurt. It hurt bad. And it's like, why, you know, and it's like one of the things about narcissists is that you'll think that you're arguing with them and you have boundaries, but narcissists do not. They
They
will
don't.
punch you right below the belt.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
and
they won't think twice about it.
yeah, I learned that the hard way. And yeah, it's, but we have a whole planet full of people like that now. And
Would
I
you
don't
would you
know.
like a fun story about how I made a narcissist start sweating?
Oh, good. I want to hear it because I see this is this sinful part of me that wants to get revenge. You know, whenever okay, I warn. Oh, I'm just gonna say this before I let you talk. I always warn people, if you see me doing a whole bunch of extra nice stuff, it's because I'm tempted to do a bunch of bad stuff. I was tempted Wednesday to do something really, really dirty, just get pure revenge on this person online. So that's why I was saying all those nice things. I meant all those nice things, but I was like, I've got to stop. So you do the opposite of what you want to do. It's a tactic. It's like, so if you think about punching someone in the face, you do something nice for them or
See,
metaphorical.
I would probably be okay with that, but there are times I'm very protective of my friends, and this was somebody attack like I'll explain the story in a minute, but I was more or less defending a friend, and when I defend friends, I get vicious. I don't care
Yes.
anymore.
Yeah, I was about ready to say, and some people might say of someone else, like, why is this person being like this? Well, because when people are defending me, you know, people defend their friends, you know? Yeah, and, the Gadfly Fiction says this really well, "Punch you below the belt and ask you why you hurt them." Mhm.
Yo.
Absolutely. Damn
Mhm.
right. Hashtag
So
narcissist abuse. Alright.
long story short, one of my closest friends, she's one of those people that doesn't have a backbone and they let people walk all over them, but they're just so sweet. Like you just want to defend them, right?
Mhm.
She's one of those people. And her husband is a narcissist, or her current about to be ex-husband is a narcissist. And they're going through kind of a separation because they had a weird type of marriage where you have to be separated for 2 years before you can get divorced. I know it's weird. It's yeah.
Well, you
He's
know, maybe there's something to be said about that, a cooling off period, but I digress. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So basically, he's currently dating somebody else right now.
Oh.
And his girlfriend posted a thing on a social media website that is public knowledge. And most people know that he is still technically married to my friend. And so what I did is I went on this public forum website and I said, "Wow, how does your wife feel about your girlfriend?" And he
Oh.
immediately messages me like, "Can you please take that down? Can you erase that?" I was like, "No. Have your wife tell me to erase it." She didn't, by the way. But he had a whole conversation with her. He's like, "Yeah, like that message scared me, and like a lot of people saw that, and blah 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 blah. Like I don't want to look bad in front of my friends because narcissists, they
Mhm.
care about their image, and I poked his image."
Okay. Well, see, that's a situation where actually I have no problem with that. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that I won't get my revenge. We'll see. But you got to make sure you do revenge in a manner. You did some revenge with truth, if you will. It has to be done in truth, and it can't be under the belt. Yeah, but that was a good one, by the way.
Yes, I was just like, ooh, it feels so nice. Because like he talked to me, like he and I had a dialogue, and he's like, why are you doing this? I'm like, because he's basically hog tying my friend and not allowing her to fast forward the divorce because of XYZ reasons. I'm like, get this done faster. And he's like, well, blah, blah, blah. I'm not willing to admit that I've done anything wrong. I'm like, well, then I'm not deleting the comment.
Well, yeah, they'll well, that's the other thing. Narcissists will never admit they're doing something wrong. Like they can hurt you, but but that's exactly right. If you try to defend yourself, they'll be like, I can't believe you were so mean to me. And you're like, but you did this. That under the belt was where the soffit starts that sort of. Yeah, well, there's a line. There's a line because also you have to consider your own soul. But that's a really good situation. And I agree with you on Untamed Mando. It's a lot easier to be like that when you're defending somebody else, because there is a certain rage that will come in. I don't want to call out by name, even though it was public, but we have a mutual friend. And I think we both kind of went to bat for her on Twitter.
Yeah. I think I went to war, bro. I got people that started stalking me because of that whole situation.
Yeah, but it was really over the top what they were doing to her. And it's like, no, that's not okay.
I still had fun with all of that, though, because things started to get ridiculous. And I was like, you know what? Let's have fun with this.
Yeah. Road Warrior, I'm not doing anything wrong, but here's my girlfriend on the side. Yeah.
Right? And he's the thing that got me is because she's assuming that he's sleeping with his girlfriend because she stays the night and sleeps in his bed. He's like, why would you think I'm sleeping with her?
It's like, do you need me to explain it to you? When a man and a woman are in bed together and they like each other a lot, they're not sitting there playing teddy bears and drinking tea. And
when he said that, I was like, what? You mean you've admitted to having this girl stay the night and she sleeps in the same bed with you, but on the other side?
Well, the only people that do that and don't have sex are the very Mormon, Twilight, Edward, and Chris, and
yes,
and Bella, because they really did, but they were Mormon. He was a Mormon vampire, and she was, I mean, it's written by a Mormon. So she actually did have her fictional characters sleep in the same bed, but they never had sex till they were married. That's the only time it ever happened. And guess what? It's not real. It's fiction.
Yup. It's
like, it happened in a book.
Yes. Which, yeah. So I was the reason why I bring that up is because he's a classic narcissist. It's like, I've done nothing wrong. Why would you think that?
Good one, Gadfly. Vengeance is the Lord's, but Schadenfreude is a powerful feeling. Heck yes.
Yup.
Sword Piss, define sleeping together. At my age, I actually do sleep. In fact, this is all I do these days. Okay, yeah, well, maybe I should say once you're over 50, maybe you really are just sleeping together.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I guess. But when you are mid 30s to early 30s, that's not what's happening.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me tell the truth. Even when you're 70 and 80, if you're in the same bed, you're doing something. But I don't want to get details, This is a Christian channel tonight for 1 hour, 2 hours. Well, tomorrow, tune in tomorrow at for our magician master stream where anything can get said because I bring on a Norwegian and Rennie. It's just things can get a little crazy. The worst thing we ever did was I would kind of read aloud passages, and I had no idea until I was reading it aloud in the Two Towers, the Battle of Helm's Deep, how much innuendo that is definitely not there intentionally, but with our modern 21st century minds sounded really
dirty. I wasn't the only one who thought that reading the Twitch. I was like,
Yeah, they're like, well, okay, here's the thing. I go, Gandalf is come, and suddenly everyone on the panel starts to laugh, and I'm like, uh-oh, we're in trouble now. So you see that too?
I was like, because I was thinking that I was reading, I was like,
Yeah, I know.
I'm like 5 years old, stop it.
I know, it's like we're 3 years old, yeah. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, I was laughing so hard. I mean, it was terrible. We were really so if you really wanna it was probably the dirtiest we've ever gotten on my channel, and all I'm ever doing is just reading aloud Tolkien's words.
Hey, words are hard.
Yeah, all the kinky stuff. Ooh la la, yeah. Who knew that the Helm's Deep had 50 Shades of Helm's Deep, I guess. I don't know.
Did you know actually 50 Shades of Grey, it was a fan fiction of Twilight?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how it started.
I know, and I'm kind of ashamed that I know so much about Twilight and all of its lore.
I read Twilight. I read Twilight when I was a young person in high school because everyone else was reading it. So
Yeah. Yes, I know that sort of poop is that. I'm not even going to read that aloud. Uh, yeah. Well, here's the deal with Twilight. I don't think I'm giving away a confidentiality. If you saw that Lady Gravemaster said, well, she was getting mad at Stieg about something, and then she was saying, and then Teresa makes suggestions for a live stream. The suggestion I made for the live stream, I wrote her, I go, girl, you gotta watch the first Twilight movie and then we live stream it. Because I just want to hear her rage. And that was what that was.
amazing. Oh my god. I want to be on. Can I be on it too?
I'll invite you on if it happens, and we'll just sit there and she'll just like, okay, we're talking about her, but I think she'd be okay with that. She'll inhale and then for 3 hours of rage and
Well,
rant.
also like I've seen all of the movies because they usually came out on around November. My birthday is in November, so people knew I read the books, and so they buy me tickets for to see the movies. I saw all
Okay.
of them.
I okay. True story. True story. Not only did I see all the movies on opening, I went to the midnight releases of the books. Okay, I lined up with all those daggone teenagers.
Were you the squealing teenager like?
I wasn't the squealing teenager. It was more like, get the hell out. I want to find out what happens. Yeah, so I did. It is my guilty pleasure. And I will never deny the fact that it is my guilty pleasure, as well as the movies, because it's like soap opera. It's like Days of Our Lives. And I really did enjoy them. They were page turners. And if something makes you turn the page, it is entertaining. Now, the movie, especially the soundtrack for the first movie and the final one, because they had the same composers, the music's magnificent.
Oh, I still sometimes
Bella's
gonna admit,
Lullaby.
I still sometimes listen to the soundtracks for some of the Twilight movies because they're that good.
The soundtracks are great. If you just forget what the story is, I mean, the music is gorgeous. Really, really good stuff. And it's okay, here's my fantasy. I should probably type Lady Greymaster. We're talking about you, but we're being really nice. She watches Twilight. She doesn't know what happens. And then we just say, oh, by the way, Jacob's going to imprint on her baby.
When I read that as a teenager, I squealed because in all honesty, I'm a werewolf person. So when it comes to like fantasy, like stuff, I love werewolves. I was always rooting. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I was always rooting for Jacob. And
oh, you were Team Jacob. How dare you?
I was always Team Jacob, and you won't change my mind. Because in the end, it actually did happen in a weird roundabout sort of kind of way that I wasn't really happy about. I was like, Jacob wins.
Yeah, it was just wrong on so many levels.
I wasn't happy about it, but I was like, Jacob kind of win.
Kind of, yeah. I should say this. Objectively speaking, Bella and Jacob's relationship was far more healthy. Because
it was a lot less toxic, like bruh.
Yeah, and started off that they were friends, and then they, it really was a healthier relationship than Mr. Stalker. I watch you while you sleep, Edward, or who's like 100 years older than she is.
Oh my god!
Talk about cradle robbing.
Yeah. That
It's
is the
like
definition.
it's like, hey, LG. Also, Bella will become a vampire after she dies, having her freak baby, and Edward has to tear out the baby with his teeth.
Teeth.
He gives her a C-section with his
For any of you watching this back, if you want to get into Twilight, but you have a brain and you are not a hormonal teenager, run away. Run away. Unless you like eating candy for dinner, because that's what Twilight is. It's basically just candy for the brain. It has no nutritional value whatsoever.
No. Except for the fact that it did have all the elements of the fantasy in the sense of marrying the super, super rich guy with the big house, like Pride and Prejudice. Oh yeah, he
Yup.
says, "I'm so lost right now," says
It's okay. We said squirrel, and then we chased the squirrel into the rabbit hole, and we found Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, it's called Roll 7. This is the longest Roll 7 we've done, but it's great. See, we're in a pub now, and if we really were drinking, we would be hammered at this point.
Especially like us sober and talking about Twilight. I'm like, are we sure we haven't been drinking? Because I feel like talking about Twilight is one of those things. Like, I do admit, yes, I have read the books and seen all of the movies, and I know that she was also working on Midnight. What was it? Something Midnight Moon. Midnight Sun, yes. And I was like, I haven't read it, but the only reason I didn't was because it basically was everything from Edward's perspective. I'm like, I don't care.
Oh,
I wanted Jacob's perspective.
Hey, and I was one of those people that was like so mad I was ready to commit murder when somebody leaked part of it, and then she said, "Now I don't feel like writing it," and we're like, "Don't punish us! Don't punish us!" And then when she announced during the COVID lockdown that she was going to publish it, I was like, "This 2020 has been saved." It is so bad it's good. You got to read it because my niece said it best. She said, "This book finally confirms that Edward really is a psycho."
Yep.
Sort of poopus. I just want to see a Twilight Buffy crossover match. Buffy does Edward crybaby. Corey Cochran, I'd review all the movies that have not read the book. I'll tell you one of the dumbest things in the movies was in Breaking Dawn Part 1 when the wolves and Jacob asserts his alpha and they try to like have the wolves acting and the voices coming through them. You just see his big wolf and Jacob's going, "I'm going to be the alpha." It was like
I was so upset. My love of werewolves, the Twilight werewolves, I didn't love. Those were the only werewolves I was like, I don't really like these werewolves.
The best part of the whole 7 movies? I forget how many movies those were. 5, I think, was Charlie. I mean, he was amazing. The actor who played Charlie, and he had the best lines. And he's just such a good actor. And he was you could almost see him just going, "I can't believe I'm doing this, but here I am."
Yep, he's like, "I'm here."
Yeah.
Thank you, Riker.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, all that being said, we probably should wind down this. This is getting crazy, and I've been we've been going for nearly 2.5 hours. This has been insane, but it's been a great time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Had lots of fun.
good times. Yeah. So, where can we find you? What's going on?
So I will be on my YouTube channel tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. I will be doing my literary souls, not shoals. And we are going to be going through the 3rd installment of the Halo book series. I actually like this book a lot better than the first two. So that'll be fun. And then Sunday also on my YouTube channel at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, Wicked Virtue and I will be doing our podcast called Unplugged with Wicked and Mando, where we just discuss pop culture and we just have a grand old time, and the memes are had by all, and it's great and it's fun. But primarily, I am a streamer on Twitch, where I stream mostly on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, playing a variety of games. That's where you'll find me most of the time. I do have also a Discord if you want to hang out, where it's nice and quiet, but then randomly we have craziness that happens. I don't know why my Discord is the way it is, but it is. So yeah, that's where you find me. Untamed Mando. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Rumble. I'm on I'm on
I
a
love
lot of the
everything.
things.
We're not answering this, Corey. We'll be here all night. American Werewolf in London. I'll just say that. There we go. And
I
the one
really
from
like the
Thriller,
underworld
Michael Jackson.
werewolves. I really like the underworld werewolves. The lichens, yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Alrighty, and you'll find me here in Miss Smart Muses tomorrow. We're continuing with Magician Master. Stay tuned for that. Please hit the bell. I'm going to be putting up the link. I'm sorry, the stream, whatever the heck you do when you set up the live stream after we're done here. And I've got a movie coming. Yes, I've got a movie coming out. Imagine that. And no,
Yes!
I have a video coming out. Probably it'll be Sunday. I wasn't really able to get it together, but it will be on the whole Black or Aragorn thing. And it put me down this rabbit hole of the problem with race swapping. That's going to be coming out on Sunday, most likely, or maybe tomorrow afternoon. I'm still working on my Feist biography video essay. It just took me longer because I learned some information that I need to incorporate and source. More pub crawl. Our fifth pub, we're going to be going to Ireland. Potato Revan is going to be a guest on Monday afternoon our time and nighttime in Ireland. So we're going to be there, and I've got a few other guests lined up, so stay tuned.
Woot. I'm
Yay.
excited.
Well, thank you everyone that's been here. Been a great crowd as always. We, sort of Poopus, Corey, Untamed. Oh, yes, that's you, Road Warrior. Gosh, so many people. We had Riker. Riker, Road Warrior, Gadfly, the Hound, 3000, Bone popped in, Salty Texas. He waved at us. Let's see, who else do we have here? Jaluk came around. Thank you very much. And if I forget anyone, it is not intentional. There were so many people to thank, and I guess that's a good problem to have. It means I'm just so glad that everyone was here and enjoying. Stephen Ransom and enjoying themselves as always. So thank you. And Ireland, the birthplace of drinking. Oh dear.
Yes, and I've had a blast. Like, let's do this again. This was fun.
We should. Yeah. Well, hey, stay tuned, sister. We'll oh gosh, even the categories. So Ireland did it. They perfected it. There you are. Oh yeah, technically you should. I think it's like the Egyptians that did. They made
probably beer. They did a lot of things.
Yeah. But what they also. Well, I was about ready to say something about Cleopatra, but it'll get us in another rabbit hole. So have a great day or a great evening and a day. Have a great day. And be certain to read all about C.S. Lewis.
Yes. Yeah. Very good.